It all begins in the year 2167, in a ruined world where the demonic race has taken over every inch of human territory. Amidst the dusty rubble, the MC, Si Chen, emerges as a lightning-type assassin, completely exhausted and injured after the long battle. This disaster started 7 years earlier, when several demon kings descended out of nowhere onto the earth, causing absolute panic. Leading this overwhelming force, the demon king Lanyue mocks humanity, calling them pathetic and useless trash. With that, the imposing monster raises his sharp claw and warns that the time has come for humans to fulfill their ultimate purpose. A massive amount of energy quickly begins to gather in the creature's hands for a devastating attack. He cruelly declares that the world's last hopes will become nothing more than food to strengthen his own power. Seeing the desperate situation, Si Chen does not back down, letting his body overflow with furious electricity. Completely consumed by anger, the young man mourns the tragic loss of his beloved sister. He also remembers his old master and all the important people who were brutally taken away from him. With this, he swears merciless revenge for all those whose lives were stolen by these beasts from the underworld. Even if it is the very last thing he does, the assassin promises to drag the lead abomination straight down to the eternal abyss. Unleashing his ultimate skill, a colossal pillar of lightning tears through the skies, hitting the enemy army head-on. The impact is so absurd that the beast itself is completely shocked to see an S-class attack coming from an ordinary human. Giving everything he had in this brilliant final strike, the hero's body slowly begins to fade away amidst a blinding light. The boy's consciousness begins to slip away as distant memories of his sister and master flash through his mind. Soon, he accepts his quiet end, thinking that he will finally reunite with his parents who have also passed on. The Demon King is infuriated by the surprise injury, while the hero regrets not discovering the enemy's lair sooner. The assassin's biggest regret was not being able to stop the very first calamity before giving up his own life. Suddenly, Si Chen's eyes snap open in a calm and brightly lit environment. He sits up in a daze, staring at his own body resting on a perfectly made bed in a regular room. Unable to process the bizarre situation, the young man is terrified to realize that, incredibly, he is still breathing. Completely lost in this mysterious place, he tries to recognize the simple furniture around him. Rushing over to the bright window, he searches for any clue about what in the world just happened. What he sees outside is a large school courtyard full of relaxed students living a perfectly normal life. Shocked by the absolute calm, he cannot understand how there are so many people completely fine when the outside world was already in ruins. After splashing some cold water on his face at the sink and thinking for a bit, the guy finally starts to digest this crazy new reality. Staring at his youthful reflection in the mirror, he realizes the impossible fact that he has gone straight back 10 years into the past. Right at that moment, a sudden loud digital buzz echoes sharply inside his head. A strange system warning pops up in the air, confirming that the grand power of gluttony has been successfully integrated into his body. Looking at his cell phone screen, the student checks the calendar and sees that he has returned to a time before the chaos existed. It is exactly May 16, 2157, proving once and for all that he is back in his college days. Doing the math quickly, he notices that there are still 3 long years of peace left before the Dark Lords appear in the sky. He knows very well that the first calamity, known as Wrath, will show up in a nearby city, spreading total destruction. It was precisely this main abomination that opened the underworld gates for the other beasts to invade the planet. That fateful event marked the beginning of the global catastrophe and was the main reason he lost his loved ones. Clenching his fists incredibly tight, the young man feels an immense hope burning in his veins at the chance to change history. The survival plan is clear. By eliminating the first invader ahead of schedule, the gates will never open for the rest of their kind. Now more focused on the immediate present, he turns his curious attention back to the floating system screen operating on its own in the room. Reaching his hand into the void, he notices that the technological interface has been hovering in the air since the moment he woke up on the bed. Upon gently touching the projection, his strength and luck stats appear in detail, just like in old-school video games. Quite confused by the low starting numbers, he wonders the real reason why his abilities are being measured by a screen. In his past life filled with constant battles, he never came across any magic working in such a weird format. Before jumping through time, his lethal combat method was based entirely on the pure awakening of the lightning class. Except that in this phase as a naive, talentless college student, he used to get totally clobbered by the big guys for being at the bottom of the food chain. Remembering those humiliating attacks, he ends up discovering the painful reason why he woke up straight in a campus medical bed. However, the translucent visor blinks an alert, showing a floating window that grabs all the injured boy's attention. slowly appearing before him as a golden virtual card holding the exact data for his future deadly shock class. Completely surprised by the tremendous magical coincidence, he quickly confirms that this is the exact same lethal profession he used in the apocalyptic war. A very familiar raw energy suddenly circulates through his veins, alerting him that the talent he earned in the future came right back with him. Without wasting a single second doubting it, the hero selects the panel and starts the class change immediately. At that same noisy moment, the infirmary door is pushed open roughly by a hurried guy in a sweater. This worried student is Ma Long, who bursts through the entrance yelling to check if his friend's injuries have gotten worse. The MC calms his buddy down and realizes with relief that only his own eyes can see the virtual messages in the air. Analyzing the survivor up close, his friend freaks out, jaw-dropping when he notices that yesterday's severe injuries healed up like magic. Watching all that comical panic up close, the former assassin misses the days when the two of them shared a dorm room. Even knowing that his buddy would be tragically taken out early in the evil invasion, seeing him alive warms his heart. It is only when seeing this old companion chattering away standing in front of him that the reality of being safe in the past really hits home. Happy about the miraculous recovery he just witnessed, Ma Long is already pulling the former patient by his clothes, demanding he show up for the next day's exam. He puts his foot down, insisting that the school's dreaded official evaluation is the only way to secure their coveted diploma without a hitch. The duo walks along without any rush through the huge student courtyard, lit by a beautiful, vibrant, golden late afternoon. The pleasant environment is packed with young people shooting the breeze and enjoying the perks of a peaceful life. Seeing the crowd kicking a ball on the nearby court, the time traveler randomly comments on how much he missed being around people who were still breathing. Hearing this weird and overly gloomy talk right out of the blue, Ma Long shivers, finding the statement totally creepy. To quickly cut the tension in the air, the easily spooked student suggests they just finish their walk through the sports complex and avoid any more jump scares. Except the hero's distant thoughts cannot let go of the suffocating memory of seeing all these structures crumble into gray pieces. Deep down, he knows that today's blissful ignorance is just a temporary act before the real global catastrophe begins. Fully determined not to be a repeat failure, the guy makes a silent promise to level up by completely crushing the normal limits. The critical issue is that the rule of this peaceful era requires taking down monsters hidden in isolated layers just to get a drop of real experience. However, these dangerous and highly profitable training grounds are kept under lock and key by massive wealthy corporations crawling with armed security. Thinking about the locked numbers on his magic interface, the MC keeps trying to guess what true rank he will manage to get on the test. Seriously sizing up the defensive posture of the buddy next to him, he silently concludes that his aura has easily surpassed the poor guy's. At the exact moment of this deep mental distraction, a dirty sports ball suddenly cuts through the air at an absurd speed, heading straight for the back of his head. With zero time to block the hit with his hands, Ma Long takes the blow right to the face, letting out a painful groan as he takes a nasty fall onto the pavement. From the luxurious top of the courtyard's grand stairs, an intimidating group of school bullies laughs obnoxiously at the fallen duo's humiliation. Sitting on the steps, the leader of the bullies comments that the two of them recovered pretty fast from their last encounter. Lying on the ground holding his hurt face, Ma Long curses their terrible luck for bumping into him of all people. The troublemaker calmly stands up from the steps and stares down at the boys. With that, he mockingly repeats his surprise at the duo's quick recovery. Then he brags to his goons about how he told them those punks could take a serious beating. Staring at the situation coldly, the MC immediately recognizes the guy as bitter memories from the past resurface. He remembers perfectly when his head was forcefully shoved underwater, almost drowning him. He recalls being humiliated in the school bathroom by this exact same group of cowards laughing right in his face. Back then, poor Ma Long also begged desperately for them to stop the attacks. However, the aggressor would just ask why he should stop, cynically claiming he was actually helping the kid out. The bully justified the torment by saying his classmate had not awakened yet and just needed a little push. While shoving Sai Chen's head down, the whole group laughed hysterically at the messed up situation. They only left the guy tossed on the floor because they felt the prank had gotten boring. Snapping back to reality, his friend tries to help the former assassin up, asking if he is okay. With a dark look in his eyes, the MC wonders to himself why these people can never just leave them alone. He concludes that pure malice does not only exist inside monster lairs, but the attacker notices his muttering. With a sadistic smirk on his face, the leader calls his gang over to torment the boys a little more. Walking toward them, the guy aggressively demands to know why they did not bring drinks for his game. Terrified by the threat, the MC's buddy scrambles to apologize and promises to go buy everything right that second. But Si Chen steps forward calmly, telling his friend that he did nothing wrong and that the attackers are the ones who owe an apology. Hearing this confident comeback, the gang leader freezes for a second, totally confused. Meanwhile, the easily spoofed student goes into full panic mode, asking what on earth his partner is doing. Wasting no time, the bully named Gong Cheng lunges forward, activating his greenish combat aura around his arms. The hero knows this guy only picks on the weak because his older brother is the student council president. Around the courtyard, the other students start whispering, predicting the duo is going to get wrecked all over again. The crowd makes fun of the situation, bringing up that those two are the most useless guys in the whole school. Showing off his E-class power, the bully gets right up in the time traveler's face. He arrogantly lifts the target's chin and demands he repeat those bold words from a second ago. Without backing down a single inch, the assassin maintains a cold stare, ordering them to never bother them again. Completely furious at the audacity, the attacker winds up a heavy punch, yelling that the kid needs another beatdown. With absurd ease, the former assassin raises his hand and blocks the direct impact of the punch without even flinching. The wild scene instantly grabs the attention of all the students scattered around the sports court. People cannot believe what just happened and start loudly questioning the scene. The onlookers are shocked that a kid with no magical awakening managed to stop an attack from a real fighter. Feeling his pride bruised, the big guy insults his target, claiming he is nothing but a total loser trying to challenge him. Seeing the situation as a perfect opportunity, the hero decides to use the attacker to test his skills and switch his classes. The system interface glows, confirming the immediate switch to the lethal electric assassin profession. Watching his buddy give off an overwhelming energy, Ma Long yells in desperation, wanting to know when he awakened. The MC's body is now completely covered by little sparks of lightning dancing around him. Annoyed by the show-off, the bully activates his indestructible demonic armor, creating a rocky layer over his body. With that, he charges, throwing a heavy fist at his opponent, promising to make him remember his strength. Taking advantage of the giant opening, Si Chen easily dodges and lands an electrified punch straight into the enemy's stomach. The explosive impact of the counterattack sends the brute flying far across the courtyard. The crowd and poor Ma Long completely freak out seeing the bully get defeated with just one quick strike. Brutally slammed onto the courtyard floor, the attacker coughs from the extreme pain while accusing the newbie of a cheap shot from behind. Totally humiliated, the gang leader yells, demanding to know if his goons are just going to stand there watching. Scared of the opponent's strength, one of the lackeys stammers, having zero courage to jump into the fight. The hero stands his ground, radiating a completely terrifying and dark aura across the courtyard. In a fit of uncontrolled rage, the bully gets up from the ground and jumps, screaming that he is going to end the electric kid. Their two fists violently clash in the air, causing a harsh shockwave of energy and rocks. Si Chen's force instantly crushes the enemy's armor, and he coldly states that the guy is way too weak. Giving him no chance to defend, the MC unloads an insane combo of glowing punches against the brute. The attacker is brutally thrown backward, his own protective power completely shattered to pieces. His body flies out of control until he slams hard against the side structures of the bleachers. Tossed in the rubble and bleeding quite a bit, the bully coughs, suffering the heavy damage from the beatdown. Seeing the absurd level of violence, the students watching start running in a panic, spreading terror. The buddy in the sweater breaks into a cold sweat, trembling from head to toe trying to understand the sudden change. He stands there in shock, wondering when his old friend turned into such a strong monster. While chaos breaks loose, the winner stares at his own hands, drawing its first conclusions from the fight. He understands that he can switch to the electricity class whenever he wants, even if his system level is at the very start. It is proven that his basic daily power is already more than enough to destroy weak E-class users. Except a new problematic detail pops up right in the middle of this sudden battlefield victory. Staring at the digital screen in the air, he notices his stats are still stuck at 100 points without gaining any experience. Bothered by the lack of progress, the guy reignites the electricity in his hand and walks toward the defeated bully. Noticing the dangerous approach, his buddy tries to stop him, yelling desperately to know what he is about to do. Sprawled out awkwardly, the attacker's eyes go wide, completely terrified by the shadow of the executioner looming over him. The assassin darkly wonders if the method to gain experience in the past requires the enemy to be taken out completely. Grabbing the guy mercilessly by his collar, he lifts the injured body up, prepping the final blow. However, the sound of heels approaches, and a polite female voice warns that they are still inside a school. The student council vice president Ling Yu shows up declaring that this punishment is already more than enough. Keeping a friendly posture, the girl guarantees that the troublemaker will never dare lay a finger on them again. Hearing the warning, the MC simply lets go of the brute's clothes and lets him drop to the floor. He suspected this political protection from the council, but he never actually planned on finishing the kid off anyway. While the vice president handles the mess, the hero knows that if he does not properly scare these rats, they will just come back to bother him. And sure enough, the other students gossiping from afar have already agreed to never again provoke the supposedly most useless kid in school. With the conflict over, the bully's goons run away, obeying the orders given. Chill about the resolved situation, Ling Yu calls the MC over so they can leave the courtyard. Night falls over the school, bringing a calm vibe to the boys' dorm. Inside the room, Ma Long is freaking out with excitement upon realizing his friend is a super strong electric assassin. He brags about how the rival gang does not even dare look them in the face after they wipe the floor with their leader. Relaxing in his chair, roommate Xiong Sua asks where the hero went off to. The guy questions if an awakened powerhouse like that still needs to go out jogging and do basic training. Glued to his computer, Shen Yu agrees and jokes that the sweater kid's brain turned to mush from getting beat up so much. Then, he brings up that the four of them only share the same dorm room because they are the absolute worst students in their entire class here. Showing off his magical energy, Shangzua claims to be the best in the room since he has the only combat class there. He quickly doubts Sai Chen's strength, thinking he is too weak, while feeling his own power growing. The roommate on the computer ends the topic, saying the final graduation test the next day will clear everything up. Meanwhile, the E-level monster training lair burns intensely somewhere else. Standing before the pillar of flames, Student Council President Gong Ting strikes an imposing pose after the fight. Satisfied with the performance, the leader decides to wrap up the day's training and dismisses his team. Back in the locker room, the president walks over to his younger brother who is waiting for him in the dark. Covered in bandages and furious, Gong Cheng tries to manipulate the leader, saying the attacker showed absolutely zero respect for him. Perfectly understanding the injured kid's intention, the older brother just nods silently. With a cold attitude, Gong Ting promises he will handle this problem personally. Later on, a sharp knife cuts a piece of juicy meat during a fancy dinner. Helping himself calmly, the president comments that his brother simply lost because the opponent was better. Still curious, he asks his guest if the kid who caused the ruckus is really that strong. Sitting at the table, Ling Yu points out that fewer than 10 people in the school have reached D level, and all of them have already been recruited by him. She emphasizes that the other students do not have access to the lucrative monster lairs to evolve. Confident, the girl guarantees that these mediocre awakened ones will never be able to keep up with the president's pace. Far away from there, the MC runs under heavy rain carrying 100 kilos of weight on his back. He knows that a warrior's upper limit depends on their body, making it vital to have physical endurance to use extreme powers. Completely soaked and panting, the former assassin is fully aware that this effort is still not enough. Dark memories from the year 2160 invade his mind, showing Lord Wrath massacring humanity. The worst memory of all is of his beloved sister losing her life brutally in the clutches of that very creature. It was precisely this calamity that opened the gates of the underworld and allowed the invasion of the other beasts into the human world. Focused on his absolute goal, the young man continues his heavy training, enduring the storm. He decides that the main goal of his first evolution phase is to eliminate Lord Wrath ahead of time. Knowing there are only 3 years left until the monster descends, the assassin understands he needs to get stronger way faster. Suddenly, a loud vibration in his pocket cuts through the silence of the rainy night, catching his attention. Grabbing his cell phone, the student is relieved to see it as a callback from his beloved sister Sai Yun. Unable to hold back the emotion of the moment, he answers the call with a soft and nostalgic voice. On the other end of the line, the girl asks excitedly why he had called so many times that day. Full of hope, she mentioned she entered a competition and the prize money could solve their rent problems. The former warrior falls silent, remembering the prayers he made in the ruined future, begging for a chance to start over. Worried by his lack of response and the sound of the rain, the young woman asks if everything is okay, but he hides his sadness. Hearing his sister's voice alive brings immense comfort, renewing his will to go through any hell to protect her. Excited about the future, Siyun promises to bring good news about the tournament soon and says goodbye to her brother. Facing the rain with his head held high, the MC feels the weight that everything really has started from scratch. With renewed energy and determination, he goes back to running on the track, telling himself there are still 3 laps to go. Back at the dorm after 8 hours since he jumped through time, the hero reflects on the urgency of getting stronger. Taking a hot shower to relax his muscles, he feels he is gradually adapting to his younger body. Towel drying his hair, the guy knows he now needs to focus on his most critical problem to evolve. Sitting on the edge of the bed, He complains that all the local monster lairs are monopolized by the big guilds. With no money or influence, the student has no idea how he is going to manage to encounter beasts to level up. Thinking exhaustedly about the mysterious gluttony power he received, the MC closes his eyes and falls into a deep sleep. Suddenly, the system interface announces that the loading is complete and starts a hidden program. The former assassin's body is sucked into a weird dimension, landing nimbly on a reddish floor. Looking around, he is met with a bizarre landscape containing a colossal tower made of bones and flesh. Totally confused by the macabre setting, the guy wonders how he ended up there if he was just sleeping. He stares at the massive, sinister structure on the horizon, trying to understand the purpose of that demonic pillar. Then E-level doomhounds start appearing, growling from among the carcasses scattered across the bloody scenery. Recognizing the beasts immediately, the kid activates his class change, figuring out he ended up inside a lair. Assuming his electric assassin stance, he decides to ignore the questions for now and focus on dealing with the immediate threat. Wasting no time, one of the skeletal monsters leaps furiously with its jaws wide open straight at the intruder. Reacting at absurd speed, the warrior punches right through the doomhound's body with a devastating electric strike. The impact blows the creature's head apart, scattering blood, while the system notifies him about collecting deadly force. Going on pure offense, Sai-Chen massacres the rest of the pack easily, finding E-level beasts way too weak. Receiving several experience gain notifications, the guy realizes that this bloody place is not a lucid dream. Hitting level 2 quickly, he celebrates the genius discovery of being able to level up inside his own mind. Analyzing the interface screen, the former assassin is satisfied to see that all his stats went up by 5 points. Very hyped about the result, he realizes he scored an exclusive monster lair to loot all by himself. The calm is short-lived when a giant E-level monster, called the Zombie Forest King, shows up roaring intimidatingly. The colossal beast shoots a blast of energy from its mouth, but the MC decides to use the fight to test his new limits. With a single slashing lightning attack, the kid slices the boss right down the middle, earning 320 experience points in one go. Reaching level 3 right after, he realizes that taking down bosses speeds up his growth in a scary way. Walking through the empty battlefield, the warrior spots a new system window blinking over the beast's carcass. Totally curious about the new visual, the student focuses his attention on the weird message. The floating text indicates that the monster's remains are devourable, leaving the guy confused about what the term actually means. With that, an intense red aura starts glowing in the palm of his hand, and he gets a hunch about what is about to happen. Staring at the bright light in his palm, the MC understands that this is the true meaning of the gluttony power. The mysterious red energy begins to completely absorb the defeated beast's mortal remains. All that condensed power turns into a small floating sparkle resting over his hand. The system interface quickly announces that the monster was absorbed and turned into a card. Holding the item, the guy is amazed to discover he can devour dead enemies and turn them into his own classes. Shocked by the reveal, he realizes exactly where he knows that bizarre ability from. Intense memories abruptly start flooding his mind. The imposing silhouette of the old demon king Lanyue appears in his thoughts. The overwhelming red aura was always tied to that terrible creature from the ruined future. With this, the former assassin concludes that this is exactly the supreme power of the original demon king. Even though it is the ultimate enemy's ability, he celebrates having stolen this incredibly overpowered strength for himself. The student remembers that classes are born with their own strengths and weaknesses, and it is a strict rule to only have one. However, looking at the system screen, he confirms that he now has 2 active classes at the same time. Pumped about the discovery, the warrior imagines that by absorbing more monsters, his limit will completely disappear. Focused on evolution, he decides he is going to hoard an infinite number of classes to become invincible. Calming down a bit, the guy starts questioning why he obtained such an extreme ability. Observing the macabre scenery, he also gets curious about the true nature of the demonic tower in the background. Suddenly, a crushing pressure hits the former assassin's body, putting him on high alert. A sinister voice echoes through the dark landscape, mentioning it waited a very long time for his arrival. Wielding a giant scythe, a terrifying creature emerges from the shadows, calling Sichin by name. The system reminds him that the government classifies monsters from the lowest level all the way up to the supreme S rank. Unable to react, the MC is thrown backward just by the energy radiating from the enemy. Panting and holding his electric dagger, he curses that his current strength barely reaches D level. Facing a supreme boss in those conditions is a death wish, since the level gap crushes all his basic stats. Outraged, the student questions what kind of bizarre lair houses an S-rank monster in the starting area. He also tries to figure out how a creature from that dimension knows exactly who he is. Starting a frantic fight, the two trade fast blows while the kid notices the enemy is hesitating to end him. Playing with its prey, the hooded monster easily dodges the attacks and smacks the human far away. Lying on the red floor, the hero notices the opponent is avoiding vital spots, focusing only on knocking him down over and over. Hovering over the beat-up kid, the colossal beast mocks him, asking if he is still going to keep fighting. Wiping the blood from his face, the young man realizes the enemy's goal is to make him surrender. Leaning on its scythe, the monster offers a rare chance for the human to stay and protect the demonic tower by its side. Totally unyielding, the guy declares he would never accept rotting inside that hellhole. He gets up with difficulty, channeling his electric magic through the weapon's blade once again. The sinister creature watches the opponent's stubbornness with a threatening stance. Losing patience, the beast warns that the only reason he is not dead yet is because he is the only one capable of entering that place. Raising its brutal blade, the boss starts gathering an overwhelming purple energy across the scenery. Drastically boosting its physical stats, the giant threatens the intruder, making one last peace offer. Making rocks float with sheer raw power, the opponent tells the kid to stay or get crushed into dust. The MC's body is totally covered by intense lightning while he makes his final decision. Charging at extreme speed, Sai-chan announces with all his might that he chooses to defeat the enemy. Annoyed by the audacity, the supreme monster brings the scythe down hard, calling the attitude ridiculous. Using his class's agility, the former assassin dodges the crushing attack in a perfect electric zigzag. That move did not surprise him, because the kid spent the whole fight studying the opponent's patterns. With his past experience, he calculated that the beast needs almost half a second of prep time before every strike. Focused on precision, the student uses that brief moment to closely watch the angle of the monster's wrist. Reading the path perfectly, he manages to dodge the giant blade by a hair. Prepping the counterattack, the kid takes advantage of the boss's short recovery window after the missed strike. The plan is to aim exactly for that small opening where the hooded giant is totally defenseless. Activating his lightning blade skill, the hero lands a direct hit on the opponent's chest to pierce its heart. The massive electric shock paralyzes the beast, since the human knows a weak attack would never finish off an S-rank. Wasting no time, he activates the lightning god form to max out his movement speed. Running desperately away, the guy knows he only has a few seconds before the paralysis wears off. During the exchange, he paid attention to the environment and spotted the only light source in the distance. Reaching out anxiously, the runaway tries to grab the glowing portal that seems to be his salvation. Cruelly, the bright light completely vanishes into thin air, leaving the kid frozen in shock in the middle of nowhere. Appearing right behind him, the monster reveals that it was just an illusion with no escape route. Crushing any hope, the beast praises the human for finding the flaws in his attacks so quickly. Assuming its demonic form, the boss states that the guy really is the one who can bring salvation. Slowly turning his head, Sai-chan is frozen in sheer terror when he faces the creature's true appearance. Staring the beast in the eyes, the MC goes into a state of extreme tension upon recognizing that look. Shaken, he tries to stay calm to analyze the bizarre situation and find a way to survive the nightmare. In his past life, the former warrior ran into that exact physical appearance during the Bloody War. The terrible memory belongs to the body of the old demon king Lanyue at the peak of his destructive power. In the final battle of the future, the calamity could easily switch between countless high-rank classes without breaking a sweat. One of those forms was a flaming dragon that burned everything in its path. Another transformation involved creatures made of deadly poisonous plants and roots. Plus, the original monster also had a radiant and imposing figure of light. Recalling the visual memory from that dark time, the human perfectly remembers one of the metamorphoses. Out of so many overpowered options, the Demon King used the exact silhouette of the creature standing in front of him right now. With his mind racing, he figures out that this S-rank beast was devoured in the past through the power of gluttony. Since that same demonic ability is now integrated into his own body, the puzzle pieces fall into place. Looking at the bone tower, the student is shocked to realize that this entire red dimension exists inside of him. Satisfied with the deduction, the boss praises the kid's sharp mind and states he has proven worthy of the legacy. Completely disbelieving the size of his new power, the guy tries to wrap his head around the idea of owning all of it. Looking at the item floating above his hand, the MC discovers that this is the triple S-rank key to the demonic tower's gates. Then the boss explains that he once devoured countless fierce demons and sealed the strongest ones inside that very structure. Handing the artifact over to the kid, the creature tells him to devour them all and use them as fuel to get stronger. Holding the golden key, Sai-chan asks why the enemy is helping out in such a weird way. The beast replies that even within the demonic race there is a line between good and evil, revealing that the kings slaughtered their own relatives out of greed. He confesses he waited an eternity for revenge and the chance finally showed up, admitting that a certain man was right about the future. Intrigued by the reveal, the student asks who the gigantic monster is talking about, turning its back toward the colossal tower. The giant says the answers are inside and the human needs to find out on his own. Then, the opponent's body begins to dissolve into pure magic while asking the kid to take his power and make the Demon King his pay. The former assassin is completely stunned to hear the proposal to absorb all that massive strength. With this, the supreme monster declares that the human must become unstoppable and open the gates to devour everything inside. Disintegrating quickly, the creature warns that the sealed entities are extremely cruel and will not pull their punches in battle. Facing the situation with a killer look in his eyes, the guy listens as he is told he will have to bear the burden and conquer every single one to reach the top of the world. The dark voice echoes through the landscape demanding that the hero devour absolutely all the demon kings in existence without mercy. At that moment, the old lord reflects that only a man with that absurd level of determination would truly be worthy of inheriting his entire legacy of power. Accepting a responsibility, the MC reaches out and absorbs the purple energy left by the boss. An intense golden aura covers the student's body as the system announces a crushing victory, bumping his level straight up to 10. Focused on the deadly goal, the guy guarantees he carries the will of that ancient monster with him. The devouring interface successfully finishes, transferring brutal stats to the reborn hero. Just then, rays of sunlight come through the bedroom window while the kid promises to make his enemies pay with their own blood. The former assassin suddenly opens his eyes to the sound of someone telling all his roommates to get up. He sits up in bed with a quick jump, still processing a harsh transition from the demonic setting back to the regular dorm. Ma Long rushes the group, reminding them about the mandatory uniform for the day, leaving the MC a bit spaced out being back in the real world. Opening his shirt, the young man notices his injuries have completely vanished and wonders if that intense battle was just a dream. But upon opening the interface, he confirms it was all real, since even the looted items came back to reality with him. Having jumped to level 10 in a single night, the student is curious about what his official school ranking would be right now. At that moment, Xiangzua walks over to the bed, roughly grabbing his roommate's attention. With a mocking tone, the arrogant kid mentions someone was talking a big game about the newbie's skills last night. The easily spooked Ma Long shrinks back in the corner, admitting he was the one who said his friend had become a real combat powerhouse. Annoyed by the rumor, the preppy student asks if the hero is trying to overthrow his reign as the strongest guy in the room. Not caring one bit about the little show, Sai-chan replies that the ranking test is about to start and they will see who really has what it takes there. The arrogant guy takes an angry bite out of his snack, accepting the subtle challenge with plenty of rage. Walking through the courtyard, Xiangzua brags, explaining that the classes are divided into 3 tiers and he has already secured his spot in the mid-tier. He claims the power difference is massive, guaranteeing he could drop 10 low-tier newbies at the same time without breaking a sweat. The roommate keeps blabbering about the chance of moving up the ranks while the MC just tunes out the speech. Ma Long whispers for his friend to just try and hit D rank just to scare the loudmouth bully. The former assassin finds the harmless suggestion funny since his current strength probably blows way past that basic margin. Nearby, several anxious students gather at the main building's entrance waiting for official instructions. Watching the crowd move, the sweater kid spots a heated commotion right near the front. The evaluation square is already totally packed with students who got there early to secure a good spot for the school event. Right off the bat, Gong Chang's goons push their way through, shoving others aggressively and disrespectfully. The easily spooked friend suggests backing off immediately when he sees the group of troublemakers approaching with a very unfriendly vibe. Even the arrogant Xiangzua goes into shock realizing the brutes are looking straight at them. On the flip side, the MC keeps a totally relaxed posture, completely unfazed by the supposed threat heading his way. Instead of picking a fight, the bully's goons start sweating cold bullets, absolutely terrified by the hero's presence there. They bow in an exaggerated apology, greeting the guy like a true untouchable boss. Xiangzua's jaw drops at the show of respect, starting to believe that last night's crazy rumors were actually true. Completely cold, the MC walks right past the bowing troublemakers without even giving them a look. Right then, a student council officer approaches the group, bringing up the incident involving Gongchang on school grounds. Shaking with fear of authority, Ma Long mentions that the beaten-up student is the younger brother of the feared council president, Gong Ting. He identifies the newcomer as Zhang Jian, a ruthless elite member who keeps the school in line. Xiangzua recognizes the officer as the president's personal lapdog and a D-level powerhouse, predicting a tragic fate for his roommate. Sniffing the air weirdly, the officer claims the atmosphere is heavy and his combat sense of smell is extremely sharp. The preppy guy leans into the former assassin's ear to say he can smell a strong person from miles away. Doubling down on his weird skill, the senior guarantees he never misses when it comes to recognizing true hidden power. He provokes the newbie, stating that all he smells on him is the sour stench of a pathetic loser destined to fail for the rest of his life. But keeping his cool, Si-Chen casually asks if the council member is some kind of stray mutt. The officer instantly loses his composure and yells furiously at the unexpected insult fired by the freshman. Before the fight kicks off, an authoritative voice echoes from the stairs, ordering Jiang Jian to stop the attack. Walking down the steps looking imposing, President Gong Ting states he already looked into the case and his little brother was the one to blame for the mess. Maintaining a leader's coolness, he declares it is only fair to pay the price for making mistakes, making his subordinate back down and agree instantly. After the unbiased statement, the president locks eyes with the black-haired kid, analyzing his fearless posture. Si-Chen holds the heavy eye contact without backing down a single inch against the school's biggest authority figure. The tension is broken by an announcement on the giant screen stating that the evaluation ceremony is going to start with roll call by student ID numbers. Turning his back to the group, the president tells them to get ready for the event, while his lapdog concludes the newbie is no threat. The huge central courtyard begins to get organized so the students can go through the official check of their magical skills. Watching everything from the panoramic window, Vice President Ling Yu questions why the leader went down to watch the test in person. Sipping her tea with great interest, the elite girl comments that this year's evaluation seems to be hiding some good surprises. The glowing screen lights up Colin Xiangzuo's name to step up to the platform while the crowd cheers for the competitor. Full of confidence in his own strength, the preppy student cracks his knuckles, ready to show off his progress to the whole school. He walks toward a bright, high-tech capsule placed prominently in the center of the field. The strict procedure requires the test to be done individually inside a monster lair simulated by the school's machinery. The machine was built using a defeated monster's core, gaining the unique ability to absorb insane magical impacts. For the system to register the exact level of the user, the student must release all their destructive energy at once into the central target. The monster heart inside the machine intensely starts absorbing the strike's energy to send the data through the cables. With that, the entire rig lights up, processing the received hit. The big screen soon displays an intermediate E-level grade for Xiangzuo. Watching the result, the evaluators comment on the fast read and wait to see the student's potential. The arrogant guy gets ready full of confidence, knowing this is the most important part of the test. The system calculates the maximum capacity the tester can reach in the future and preps to reveal the rank. A big letter C pops up glowing on the screen, confirming the kid's potential. Stepping off the platform frustrated, the show-off realizes he has not improved at all in 2 years, while the machine calls up the next person. He joins his roommates, who try to comfort him by admitting they are even weaker. With the group's low scores revealed, they get terrified at the chance of not having a single D rank among them. But suddenly, the screen shows a low D-level score with B potential, leaving the crowd completely shocked. The audience goes wild seeing the very first student of that year manage to hit the dream D rank. A while later, another student finishes his evaluation, securing a D level with an impressive A potential. The group of worst students gets totally bummed noticing that was already the 8th D rank of the day. The teachers are blown away by the amount of talent popping up even without real combat experience. The system's voice echoes through the courtyard calling the next candidate while heavy footsteps approach. President Gong Ting steps up with his full imposing posture to take the test. Right away the students start whispering in awe of the leader, backed by the Imperial Guild. Si-Chen closely watches the elite student who carries countless prestigious titles. The crowd gossips that he had already hit intermediate D level 2 years ago, and they are curious about his current power. The machine's monstrous heart pulses intensely waiting for the impact. Then the president touches the equipment, releasing his crushing energy directly into the core. Focused on making a splash, the senior decides to hold back a bit of his real strength so he doesn't overdo the show. Even so, he promises himself he will take first place in school history. The big screen frantically processes the magical data looking for the exact rank. One of the evaluator's jaws drops upon recognizing the rare color popping up on the monitor. The giant screen reveals a scary high D level with the legendary S potential. The students go into absolute frenzy, screaming in shock at the max score achieved. Euphoria takes over the courtyard with everyone celebrating the president's unprecedented feat in the school's history. The former assassin's roommates are dying of jealousy, knowing they just witnessed a historical moment. The teachers confirm the scary score and decide to report the discovery to their higher-ups immediately. Soaking in the glory, the senior shows off all his arrogance as he is treated like a literal national treasure. Far from the crowd, 2 mysterious figures watch the courtyard from the window commenting on the rise of great talents. Director Yuan Long states that everyone already knew about that kid's potential, and that is why so many people came to watch. However, the blonde figure next to him calmly replies that she is not just there for the president. Vice President Ling Yu admits she is way more anxious to see a specific someone else's performance. Then, the system announces the next turn and the MC finally starts walking toward the platform. Sai Chen steps through the crowd, keeping his expression totally cold and unfazed. A mocking freshman provokes the newbie, demanding he bring some honor to their loser room. He lets out an obnoxious laugh, claiming that if they all get bad scores, they will just be a pile of trash together. Shang Zuo's group is dying of embarrassment over becoming the biggest joke to the whole school. Annoyed by the humiliation, the easily spooked Ma Long tells the heckler to just wait and see what happens. He is totally sure his friend is going to shut everyone up while the former assassin takes his position. The bully keeps glaring at the tester with a look full of pure mockery. Ignoring the taunts, the hero stands face to face with the gigantic glowing core hanging by cables. The monstrous eye inside the contraption pulses sinisterly, seeming to analyze the candidate. With a killer look, the kid reflects that in this era, the only way to secure a future is by joining a big guild. He knows full well that the combat evaluation is the perfect chance to prove his worth to the strongest. The rules allow students to form squads of up to 10 members, picking their own teammates freely. The winning team will be recruited directly by the Imperial Guild, making this test the most important event of their lives. Meanwhile, one of the elite students is congratulated by his goons for hitting low D level. The preppy guy brags, saying that with him the squad is complete, gathering the school's best right alongside the leader. They celebrate the invincible lineup, understanding that in this environment the strongest always stick together. As a result, weak students like Ma Long's group are left behind to form the worst squad. Sweating cold bullets, the sweater kid goes into a panic noticing his friend still hasn't made a move on the platform. The monitor stays frozen, just showing the MC's name without any actual result. Taking advantage of the delay, the heckler goes back to mocking, saying the machine can't even calculate such pathetic strength. Having zero patience for losers, the elite squad decides to leave the courtyard, overflowing with arrogance. President Gong Ting agrees with the idea and tells his lackeys to call the rest of the team to celebrate. But suddenly, the big screen system starts glitching out like crazy, processing an absurd amount of data. The high D-level ranking pops up on the monitor, leaving the crowd in absolute shock at the turnaround. The hero's roommates are paralyzed, unable to believe what they are seeing. Mon freaks out with joy, screaming to everyone that he was always right about his buddy's absurd power. Surprised by the uproar, the president and his lapdog look back, totally in disbelief at the score. The monstrous core starts sweating and shaking as the system warns about a severe instability, asking for a retest. Looking at his own hand, the former assassin concludes he only used his pure physical strength without activating any class. Determined to test his limits, he activates his class switch skill, wrapping his arm in glowing energy. The light panel reveals the form of the Infernal Death King at level 10 taking over his body. The machine collapses again and the power level begins to spike drastically. The display updates the score, showing an unbelievable intermediate C cranks for the newbie. The students go into complete panic, screaming that the score just jumped to an impossible tier. Sweating cold bullets, the elite leader tries to convince himself that the school contraption must have a serious defect. Even the evaluators at the desk are lost, confirming they have never seen the equipment fail like this. The machine's demonic heart twists violently, veins popping under the crushing pressure. Bathed in a purple aura, the MC preps his next class knowing his real power is way higher. The class switch completes, revealing the form of the Purgatory Rakshasa at level 10. Totally wrapped in purple energy, Si Chen decides to test the full reach of his power. The machine's monstrous core cannot handle the pressure and violently starts cracking under that crushing aura. With that, the sky darkens fast, forming a giant whirlpool of black clouds loaded with lightning. A colossal pillar of pure purple energy strikes the ground with devastating force, terrifying everyone around. Shocked by the scary scene, the students stand frozen, trying to figure out what kind of madness is happening in the courtyard. Mong freaks out, claiming that is a real celestial omen. He realizes their dorm just birthed a literal god-tier monster. Meanwhile, the equipment's panel completely glitches out, with the level and potential meters jumping non-stop. A huge, glitchy letter S pops up on the potential screen, trying to process the candidate's absurd data. Completely terrified, the evaluators scream in panic seeing yet another potential S rank appear on the exact same day. Watching the situation while sweating cold bullets, Gong Ting has zero reaction upon realizing his record might be in danger. The situation gets worse when the rig's security system flashes a red imminent danger warning on the giant screen. Soon the monitor suffers a fatal system error, completely unable to measure the MC's true capacity. Collapsing entirely, the machine warns that the value is undetectable because the energy blew past the max charge limit. One of the teachers totally loses his cool and lets out an obnoxious shriek of pure terror over the total meltdown. Unable to hold back so much magical pressure, the evaluation core finally explodes into pieces, scattering sparks everywhere. The director panics, realizing the demonic heart overloaded, and orders the staff to rescue the student immediately. Amidst the smoke and snapped hanging cables, the staff yells, asking if the kid is hurt. However, when they get close to the wreckage, the evaluators freeze while staring at what is left of the contraption. Completely dried up and lifeless, the valuable monstrous heart that powered the machine had died in a bizarre way. Confused by the situation, a teacher suggests the core might have burned out from overuse during the evaluations. Keeping his cool, Si-Chen deduces he pushed too hard and choked the object to death, but admits he scored a prize from it. The system confirms he successfully devoured the heart, gaining the ability to sense threat levels around him. Discovering his gluttony gift even works on cores stuffed inside machines, the boy simply turns around and walks away. Wanting to test his new grab, the hero activates the visual skill, making his eyes glow intensely. Now he can see the exact rank of every single person around him floating over their heads. Focusing his attention on a more important target, the MC turns his head to analyze the school's elite. Gong Ting's power is revealed to be intermediate C cranks. Seeing the president's real level, Si-Chen finds it all pretty mediocre. Clearing his throat at the mic, the evaluator announces the core passed away from excessive strain and suspends the testing. He claims the freshman's insane score was just a system glitch and asks the remaining students to come back the next day. Ignoring the official excuse, the former assassin's friends celebrate wildly, calling him an absolute genius. Annoyed by the cheering, the president's lackey grabs one of the guys by the collar, insulting the MC. He rants, accusing the kid of destroying the machine and demands compensation for the time the student council lost. Completely out of patience for that little show, the hero starts gathering electricity at his fingertips. Glaring at the troublemaker with a deadly look, the former assassin wonders if he should just cripple the idiot right then and there. Suddenly, the president steps into the mess, telling his lackey to calm down and not disrespect their new teammate. The remark surprises everyone there, leaving them completely confused by the sudden approach from the school leader. Oozing with fake friendliness, Gong Ting holds out his hand, inviting the newbie to join his squad for the combat test. He drops his bait, promising that together they will hit the highest score in history and rule the entire school. The crowd starts whispering, shocked by the personal invite, realizing some current member would have to be kicked off the team. Sweating cold bullets, the lackey panics, knowing that Spot was an absolute guarantee for first place in the evaluation. Hearing the outraged murmurs about how you couldn't even bribe your way onto the team, the hero keeps his bored expression. Since the offer came straight from the powerful senior, the students figure there is no way to turn down something so huge. Swallowing his pride, the lapdog forces acceptance and welcomes the newbie, so he doesn't go against his boss's orders. However, with a simple slap to the extended hand, Si-Chen turns down the offer dryly and directly. The two arrogant seniors' eyes widen in pure shock at that humiliating public rejection. Furious, the lackey yells, asking if the punk lost his mind, but the MC turns his back, confirming he still doesn't care. Throwing a dark look over his shoulder, the former assassin tells the pest to shut his mouth and stop bothering him. Foaming at the mouth with rage over the bold reply, the preppy guy points his finger, threatening the newbie as he walks away. Shock takes over the students, who just cannot believe the guts it takes to reject the untouchable president. They figure the kid must want first place all to himself, building up a massive amount of hype. Watching it all from afar, Vice President Ling Yu laughs at the proud senior's disappointment after the rejection. Trying to save face, the humiliated leader forces a calm look, saying the freshman just has different plans. The vibe in the school courtyard gets tense after that silent clash between the most talked about guys of the moment. Disappointed with the outcome, the director mourns the failed alliance since he hoped to witness a new historical record. Finding it funny, the vice president disagrees with the old man, stating the rivalry makes everything way more interesting. She breaks down the situation, pointing out that the daddy's boy just got handed a literal declaration of war. Knowing her peer's vengeful temper well, the girl knows he won't let this insult slide. Sticking to the official excuse, the lackey tries to calm his boss, arguing that the newbie is only acting tough because of the glitch. But the leader assumes the score might be real and swears to protect his #1 spot at all costs. Wanting to prove his worth, the lapdog suggests teaching the kid a lesson, claiming to have way more practical combat experience. Gong Ting shoots a look of disgust at the dirty suggestion, and the lackey quickly backs off, apologizing for the careless remark. Totally out of the mood to celebrate, the preppy guy cancels the karaoke trip and tells the group to figure it out themselves. Before disappearing, he drops a subtle warning, stating that any action taken by his subordinates will have zero connection to him. Catching the message between the lines, the boy is surprised by the indirect permission to act on his own. A twisted look pops up on the bully's face, happily agreeing to take all the blame for the job. 10 minutes pass, and the squad finds out through gossip that the main target is no longer at school. One of the informants reports hearing the MC telling his friends he was heading home to take care of a problem. Stomping on a can on the floor violently, the lapdog celebrates his insane luck of catching his victim totally alone. With eyes wide open in pure psychopathy, he figures it will be much easier to crush the opponent far away from safety rules. Far away from there, the hero walks silently down the streets, keeping his face totally focused on his goals. As he moves through the city, painful memories of his past life start flooding the lone warrior's mind. He recalls that an elite team ended up suffering a bizarre accident while trying to clear a lair in the area. During the failed mission, these hunters ran straight into the fearsome Lord Wrath descending on Earth. The beast crushed the guild without mercy and used that opening to finally invade the human world, spreading total destruction. Determined to stop this tragedy, the MC comes up with a plan to locate the creature's lair and wipe it out in time. Arriving in front of the Mithril Guild, Si-Chen realizes he needs to get his hands on a huge chunk of cash. He knows that place is going to become the biggest material trading hub in the country in the future. Since gear determines an awakened strength, the monster market is key for trading items. Plus, selling creature parts is the fastest way to get cash right now. Checking out the horn on the table, the guild appraiser asks suspiciously where a simple student got his hands on that. The former assassin just answers straight up that he grabbed the item from a defeated monster. At that, the place's assistant recognizes the material as a fang from an E-rank beast. When she tries to explain the item's uses, the man cuts her off, telling her to drop the useless little lesson. Totally arrogant, he grumbles that he is only used to dealing with goods from D ranks and up, and high-class clients. The suit keeps complaining about the lack of rich clients and how this is delaying his promotion to supervisor. Sighing in frustration, Si-Chen realizes he had the bad luck of bumping into a useless and problematic employee. With zero interest in the sale, the appraiser dumps the rest of the paperwork onto his subordinate to handle. The girl quickly wraps up the transaction and hands over the payment, asking if the client needs anything else. Checking the balance on his phone, the boy confirms the 18,000 is enough to cover the late rent for now. However, he mentions he has one more thing and starts summoning a dark energy in the palm of his hand. A giant and menacing sword materializes on the counter while the hero asks them to appraise the weapon. Shocked by the intimidating look of the blade, the clerk stammers, completely blown away by the gear. Even without knowing the model, she feels the power coming off the object and guesses it must be at least A rank. The arrogant appraiser yells, claiming she is dreaming because a weapon of that level is worth at least 1 million. Suddenly, a blue-haired man pops up behind them, agreeing that it is definitely not an ordinary item. Thinking his boss was downplaying the value, the employee kisses up by insulting the freshman again. But the boss ignores the lackey and reveals that the sword came from the Purgatory Lands, making it an S-rank gear. Hearing the absurd classification, the two subordinates' eyes widen in absolute shock, practically having a heart attack. The manager immediately completely shifts his attitude and shakes the former assassin's hand firmly. Oozing with charm, the man welcomes the illustrious client, while the arrogant employee trembles with fear in the background. Treating the boy like royalty, the boss immediately invites him to the guild's luxurious VIP lounge. Walking down the hallway, the MC gives a discreet smile, pleased that his target has finally appeared. He already knew that man named Qingji very well from his past life. Already settled in a private environment, hot tea is served to kick off the negotiations. The manager gets straight to the point and asks how much the young man intends to sell the powerful sword for. Without beating around the bush, Si-Chen answers dryly that he wants exactly 1 million for the transaction. Surprised by the absurd bargain, the man questions if he is really asking for so little. The executive makes a point of explaining that an S-rank piece of equipment would cause a real uproar in the market and would be worth tens of millions. But the hero clarifies that he doesn't want to sell it, just use the weapon as collateral for a loan that will be paid back in 1 month. Analyzing the play, Qingji realizes that the young man is incredibly sharp for keeping possession of such a rare treasure. He tries to decipher the freshman's origins and concludes that, regardless of who he is definitely not an ordinary guy. The MC proposes the terms of the agreement, promising to return the total amount the following month with 10% interest. Realizing the delicacy of the situation, the manager politely asks the attendant to leave the room. As soon as the door closes, the suit breaks the silence, stating that he has already figured out the boy's plan. He cites the university where the hero studies and mentions the senior graduation exams that are approaching. With a confident smile, the manager points out that the prize for first place in the evaluation is exactly 1 million. The time frame and the amount perfectly match the loan proposal that has just been made. Enjoying the mind game, the blue-haired man prepares to reveal his final theory. He deduces that the rookie has absolute confidence that he will crush all the seniors and secure the grand prize. The appraiser also points out that the desperation for quick cash forced the young man to risk his most valuable equipment in the process. Finishing his precise analysis, the manager flashes a friendly smile, suggesting a new proposal. Surprising the client, he offers 1.5 million in immediate credit without charging absolutely any interest for the month. Standing up from his armchair, the man states that this small favor will serve to start a beautiful friendship between them. The MC remains silent, processing the masterstroke of the executive in front of him. To ensure the young man's trust, the boss swears to keep the negotiation completely confidential and promises the best deals in the future. Impressed by the astuteness, Si Chen notes that it's no wonder that man will turn the guild into a global empire. Accepting the handshake, the warrior reflects that he will need more than brute strength to overthrow Lord Wrath. Sealing the commercial agreement, the hero decides that this smart suit will be his first trusted ally in this timeline. The magical contract is finalized as soon as both place their hands on a luminous panel full of golden runes. Immediately, the boy's cell phone vibrates, confirming the millionaire transfer into his bank account. Concerned about the school evaluation, Qingji asks how the freshman will fight without the sword and offers to lend some equipment. The manager tries to be helpful, advising that he has great intermediate rank options in the guild's inventory. But Si Chen simply summons another monstrous sword from the purgatory and lets him know he has an exact copy of the item stored away. Seeing a second S-class treasure appear out of nowhere, the two guild employees have a mental breakdown accompanied by some bleeped-out words. With the financial problem solved, the hero turns his back and leaves the guild while the team tries to recover from the shock. Still stunned by the absurd client, the boss informs the attendant that she has just been promoted to supervisor. Walking along the sidewalks, the young man shifts his focus back to his immediate family issues. With the leftover cash, he decides he needs to stop by a store to buy an important item. Wasting no time, the boy hails a taxi and hops into the vehicle, heading to his next destination. A short time later, he steps out in front of the city's massive bus terminal. Observing the hustle and bustle of the place, the former rogue is hit by bitter memories of the extreme poverty his family went through. He recalls that before awakening his powers, he had to exhaust himself in random odd jobs just so they wouldn't go hungry. In those dark times, the two siblings shared a tiny room and counted coins to pay the rent. In the midst of the hardships, an acceptance letter to the renowned Central Arts Institute ended up arriving in the mail. However, knowing they had no way to pay the absurd costs, the girl swallowed her tears and tore up her acceptance. To avoid drowning her brother in debt, the youngest ruined her own future and pretended that the arts college was too far away. Pushing those painful memories aside, the hero checks the time on his cell phone, waiting for the arrival of his beloved sister. Suddenly, an excited shout calling his name echoes through the terminal, cutting through the engine noise. Dragging a rolling suitcase, Sa-Yoon runs toward him, scolding him for waiting at the wrong gate. The deeply missed little sister finally appears smiling, already grumbling that they are broke after paying the monthly bills. Looking at the girl, the MC reflects that 7 long years have passed. From afar, Si-Yoon waves, asking her older brother to come help her with the heavy suitcase. Not understanding his inertia, the girl reaches out and asks why he is standing there like a goofball. But, instead of answering, the hero simply steps forward and gives his sister a tight hug. Surprised by the sudden attitude, the youngest is left speechless for a moment. Holding her tight, the former shadow fighter thinks about how much he missed seeing his sister during all this time. After a few seconds, she starts pushing the boy, trying to break free from the suffocating embrace. Annoyed, the young woman lands a playful hit on him, complaining that her brother was trying to squeeze the breath out of her. With the boy carrying the luggage, she grumbles that he is acting weird and questions if he got dumped, telling him to hurry up. Walking together through the terminal, the two start chatting about the hectic trip she had. At that moment, the MC makes a silent decision while observing his sister by his side. He swears to himself that this time, he won't let the youngest go through any suffering. Meanwhile, in a dark alley of the city, a group waits right on the path the boy usually takes. The leader instructs his henchmen to hide and ambush the target as soon as he appears. With a cruel look, the thug promises to make sure the rookie learns what happens when they mess with him. Worried, one of the student council subordinates asks the boss what they will do if things go too far. Mocking, Jian replies that the attitude of that E-rank garbage deeply annoys him for acting superior. The officer recalls the disrespect and warns his accomplices to leave a piece of the freshman for him to wreck. Kang D guarantees that the boy won't even be in any condition to participate in graduation in 2 weeks when they are done. Bragging about being the school's top enforcer, the leader grips his knife, eager to put an end to the MC's charade. Far from there, the two siblings continue walking peacefully through the deserted streets. With her drink in hand, Si-yoon comments again on his strange behavior and asks if it's graduation stress. She jokes, saying that a simple guy like him doesn't usually let his emotions take over so much. Trying to cheer the hero up, the youngest repeats the advice he himself used to give, stating that opportunities always show up. To lighten the mood, the girl starts humming a motivational song about believing in oneself. Admiring his sister's intuition, Si-chen realizes she is comforting him, thinking they are still completely broke. The former shadow fighter assures her he is fine, but the young woman remains suspicious, thinking he just wants to protect his own pride. In response, the youngest turns her face, teasing that her brother is getting old and putting up emotional walls. Just ahead, the delinquents remain ambushed in the shadows of the alley, waiting for the right moment. Watching the street, one of the henchmen warns the boss that the target is accompanied by a girl. The leader celebrates the news, thinking it's perfect since there are no cameras in that spot and considering it their lucky day. At that moment, the MC's senses catch a familiar scent coming from the dark street. The warrior quickly identifies the presence of the student council gang hiding there. Seeing the enemy's audacity to set an ambush on his path, the hero braces himself. Without hesitation, he calmly takes a pair of wireless earbuds out of their case. The boy places the earbuds directly into his little sister's ears, who doesn't understand the action. Holding her shoulders, he asks her to listen to a new song, ignoring the youngest's confusion. Upon pressing play, the girl closes her eyes and begins to enjoy the melody peacefully. In silence, the former shadow fighter concludes that music really can demonstrate a person's mental state. While Si-yoon focuses on the song, the hero moves forward alone toward the dark alley. The heavily armed henchmen start to surround the MC from all sides, ready to strike. Oblivious to the imminent danger, the sister remains immersed in the heavy beat of the music in the earbuds. At a total numerical disadvantage, Si-chen charges with everything against the group of thugs. Unleashing his electric aura, the warrior remembers the bitter years of his past life when he lost his family. Overcome with fury, he is deeply angered that those scumbags dared to ruin his reunion. Without mercy, the MC lands an explosive punch charged with lightning right in the face of the first henchman. The impact of the collision throws the nearby enemies far away, clearing a path in the middle of the street. At the same time, the youngest keeps her eyes closed, enjoying the tune, completely isolated from the commotion. Taking advantage of the opening, the former rogue delivers a brutal blow to the stomach of another delinquent. With movements too fast to be seen, he beats down several gang members consecutively. Bodies start flying through the alley while the hero clears the area with devastating electric attacks. Without losing his rhythm, the boy lands a powerful knee strike to the stomach of one of the brutes. Immediately, he grabs the arm of another opponent who was trying to flank his position. In a sharp motion, Si-chen completely shatters the captured limb's bone against his own arm. The shock of the pain makes the aggressor howl in agony, realizing he has been incapacitated. To silence the screams, a crushing punch lands directly on the wounded criminal's face. The overwhelming force generates an energy explosion that sweeps the remaining henchmen into the air. Watching the beatdown, John falls into despair and wonders what kind of monster the freshman really is. Totally panicked by the overwhelming strength, the officer watches the warrior advance like a lethal lightning bolt. Before he can react, the former shadow fighter is already right in front of the suit, ready to strike. With a brutal straight punch, the hero hits the coward's chest, throwing him backward defenseless. Having knocked out the front line, the MC focuses his next attack against the leader of the enforcers. Facing the imminent danger, Chang-di tries to maintain his confidence, yelling that he is the strongest fighter of his class. In a desperate move, the bandit swings his knife, claiming he can definitely win that clash. However, the warrior simply tilts his body to the side, dodging the blade with extreme ease. Taking advantage of the massive opening, the boy lands a devastating kick that sends the hitman flying. The thud violently throws the gang leader against the dirty asphalt of the alley. Giving the team no break, the former rogue smashes the face of another subordinate with a flaming knee strike. Right after, he mercilessly steps on King D's head, pinning him to the street ground. From the shadows of that dark alley, only the intimidating red glow of Si-chen's eyes stands out. Holding the leader by the collar, the MC coldly reminds him of the warning he gave to never bother him again. With a cold glare at the trash at his feet, the hero asks which part of that warning they didn't understand. Injured and with broken ribs, the criminal realizes the freshman is a monster and tries to apologize. But the warrior presses the blade against the bandit's neck, ordering him to shut up or else. Crying in pure terror while looking into his eyes, the attacker is absolutely certain that his end is near. Totally terrified, the gang leader feels an absurdly menacing aura and wonders what that mere student has already gone through in life. With a deadly glare, the MC warns the criminal to memorize every single word he is about to say. He makes it clear that he doesn't care if the gang rots, but demands they never bother him again, especially if they try to hurt his sister. The threat continues, warning that if they even dare to appear in front of the girl, the former shadow fighter will ruin them all. Without hesitation, the warrior promises to make every single one of them disappear permanently, demanding to know if the message was understood. In absolute panic, the bandit nods frantically while the blade brushes against his neck. After giving the warning, the boy lets go of the trash and starts walking away from the alley calmly. Nearby, Siyun keeps her eyes closed, listening to the nostalgic melody on her earbuds. Emotional, the youngest lets a tear fall, not understanding why the song brings a feeling that her brother has gone through so many bad things. She feels the weight of the loneliness conveyed in the song and wonders how he could feel that way, since she was always by his side. Wiping her face, the girl turns around annoyed, complaining that he is taking that sad music prank too far. However, she is surprised to see Sichin standing there, holding a small red gift box. With a genuine smile, the hero hands over the object, letting her know he bought it especially for her. Shocked when she opens the box, the young woman recognizes the item as a top-of-the-line magical holographic pen. The sister immediately worries about the absurd cost of the gift, desperately asking where he got so much money. While the youngest admires the pen, the MC reflects bitterly on how he failed to protect her dream and her future in the past. Clenching his fist tightly, he makes a definitive decision for this new chance he has received. The warrior promises himself that this time he will protect absolutely everything concerning the girl. At that moment, the tip of the magical pen begins to glow, emitting a soft pink light into the air. Amazed, Siyun draws floating fishes and celebrates excitedly as she sees the projections come to life in front of her. Later at the apartment, the MC praises his sister's noodles while he eats happily, pleased that she liked the gift. Sitting at the table, the young woman looks at her cell phone and grumbles about the pending rent, criticizing the boy for wasting money. To the girl's shock, the former rogue calmly replies that he has already paid off the entire rent for this year. Trying to play it off, he makes up a quick excuse, saying he started a small business with a friend and managed to turn a profit. The youngest doesn't buy the story and steps closer suspiciously, accusing her brother of being a terrible liar and hiding secrets. Despite the suspicion, the young woman's gaze softens as she notices a clear change in his expression. She notes with relief that it had been a long time since she last saw such a sincere and carefree smile on the MC's face. Affectionately, the girl places her hand on his back, showing her unconditional support. Without demanding further explanations, the sister just asks him to be careful and not push himself too hard trying to solve everything alone. Touched by the youngest's genuine concern, Si-Chain simply nods in silence with a soft gaze. Far away, a doctor reports that Kang Di's injuries were severe, with more than half of his bones completely fractured. The report continues, stating that not even the best specialists will be able to heal the henchman before graduation. Watching the aquarium, Gong Ting gets annoyed at his subordinate's audacity to pick a fight, but is intrigued by the beatdown he suffered. Sitting in the armchair, Ling Yu casually comments that the injured guy will definitely sit out the academy's final exam. Cold as always, the student council president dismisses the situation, saying his team will be much better off without that dead weight. At that moment, a man in a suit enters the room with a serious posture, catching the attention of the two students. This is Gong Xuan, the university director, and he soon mentions that the problem involves the MC once again. The director confirms that he accessed the results of the last test, revealing that the boy actually reached C-Cranks, surpassing everyone in the school. Hearing this absurd news, the elite student scowls in silence, clearly bothered by the rivalry. The girl warns that Gong Ting's father invited the vice president of the alliance to watch the exam, demanding that he let no one steal the spotlight. With a sinister tone, the director raises a hypothesis in case the worst-case scenario happens during the trials. The old man asks Ling Yu, his niece, to fill the spot on the president's team if the situation gets out of hand. However, the council leader interrupts the conversation, arrogantly stating that the director is worrying for nothing. With a confident smile, the young man asks if they really think he used all his strength on the evaluation machine. He assures both of them that, on the day of the combat exam, he will show his true strength and prove his worth to everyone present. The Imperial Guild student promises to make it clear once and for all who the true strongest student in that institution is. Later, at 11 at night in the boys' dorm, the MC takes a hot shower to relax his muscles. Pensive, he celebrates finishing his intense training and concludes that he can start his real plan after graduating. The warrior's next goal is to win the 1 million prize in the final exam to pay off his debt to his associate. He recognizes the importance of honoring this financial agreement, as he will need many favors from the ally in the future. Lying in bed, the boy stares at the ceiling, calculating that he urgently needs to level up before the month ends. With total focus, he closes his eyes, and the magical system of the power of gluttony is immediately initiated in his mind. In an instant, the hero's consciousness is transported to the gigantic demonic tower made of shadows and bones. Walking through the macabre scenery, the former shadow fighter advances confidently toward the colossal gates of the structure. He reviews the stats, remembering that the evaluation revealed that his weakest class, the Zombie Forest King, hit C-Crank. On the other hand, the system couldn't measure the exact power of his most broken class, leaving the warrior intrigued. Even knowing he possesses an absolute S-tier monster, the MC still cannot extract the full potential of this entity. With the remaining class's power still a mystery, he materializes the triple S-rank golden key in the palm of his hand. Determined to test his limits today, the boy inserts the artifact into the glowing keyhole of the massive dimensional door. The gate swings wide open with a rumble, revealing an energy vortex ready to swallow anyone who dares to enter. Stepping into the purple portal, the MC wonders what new nightmare awaits him on that unknown floor. Upon landing on the other side, the warrior opens his eyes, surprised by the completely alien scenery around him. The landscape is a vast, desolate lunar plain under a starry sky, known by the system as the wastelands of the fallen star. Suddenly, the hero feels his body weigh a ton and hunches over, feeling the pressure of the environment. Unable to stay on his feet, he collapses to his knees on the rocky ground, struggling to breathe. Sweating cold, the former rogue realizes that the gravitational force of that floor is over 10 times greater than Earth's. With the exit gone, he concludes he will need to defeat the local boss using only 30% of his power. Knowing the danger, he tries to force his body to adapt quickly while a hostile presence approaches. An imposing B-rank phantom lion appears roaring, exuding a threatening spatial aura. Panting, the boy activates his skill, and sparks begin to wrap around his hand as the system switches classes. Assuming the form of the electric assassin, he faces the fierce beast, acknowledging his new opponent. Wasting no time, the spatial monster charges fiercely, trying to slash the invader with its claws. Out of pure reflex, the MC slides across the ground, managing to dodge the fatal pounce by a hair. Charging his lightning, he notices that his own body weight is a serious problem and decides to end the fight in a single blow. With everything he has, the hero lands an explosive attack on the beast, but the strike has no effect and fails to paralyze the target. Shocked, the MC realizes his attack went right through the target without dealing any damage. He soon understands that the extreme gravity of the place completely hindered his speed and accuracy. To make matters worse, the giant beast manages to move around there with absurd ease. With no time to react, the hero is hit head-on by the devastating impact of the spatial monster. Realizing the disadvantage of his current class, he activates the system and assumes the form of the powerful Purgatory Rakshasa. The magical interface soon updates the warrior's attributes, showing the insane power boost of this new transformation. Taking advantage of the brute strength bonus, the boy charges with everything into close-quarters combat. Concentrating an overwhelming energy in his fist, the former shadow fighter prepares to retaliate against the aggression. Using the environment to his favor, he accumulates gravity in his arm, maximizing the strike's damage to the limit. The destructive power of the punch is amplified dozens of times thanks to the pressure of that lunar setting. Seeing the imminent danger, the phantom lion panics at the massive threat approaching from the sky. Descending like a meteor, the MC hits the creature dead center in the middle of the rocky terrain. With the impact, a catastrophic explosion occurs while the hero declares that no one there will be able to stop him. After the crushing blow, the boy falls face down on the ground, completely exhausted and out of breath. In the center of the giant crater, the system notifies that the beast was eliminated, yielding points and precious materials. Taking a deep breath, the former rogue checks the translucent screen, confirming he finally reached level 11. He recalls that the stars on his cards represent a direct multiplier for his physical attributes. The interface clearly shows that the current form has a much higher amplification level than the forest zombie. This proves that the brute strength gain of the Purgatory Rakshasa is the main reason for that absurd damage. Even with all this power, the boy concludes that defeating the B-rank threat required his maximum energy. Pensive, the hero finds it very strange that the system didn't activate the Devour function after taking down the enemy. Only the shadowy remains of the cosmic creature stain the soil, without delivering the coveted monstrous essence. At that moment, the dimensional portal to the next floor suddenly appears on the edge of a rocky cliff. Intrigued by the dark passage, the warrior formulates a scary theory about the combat he just fought. The shadowy passage begins to pulse violently, emitting waves of pure magical pressure across the desolate environment. Dozens of glowing and terrifying eyes open in the darkness of the abyss, glaring at the invader. The MC perceives the immediate danger, deducing that the true supreme boss of that stage hasn't appeared yet. To his total despair, an entire pack of spatial beasts leaps from the rift, proving that the previous target was just a common soldier. With no other choice, the young man summons his dark energy again to endure the impending onslaught. Clenching his fists, Si-Chen heads to the front line to meet the army of phantom lions. During the relentless combat, the hero finally understands the grim warning he received about the endless pain of that purgatory. The beasts keep attacking fiercely from all sides with claws charged with destructive energy. With his face covered in bruises, the warrior withstands the severe punishment, maintaining consciousness through pure willpower. Suddenly, the former shadow fighter wakes up in his bed in the dorm, groaning out of breath and completely drenched in sweat. Trying to catch his breath, he sits up in the dark, still dazed by the infernal nightmare he just experienced. Clutching his own chest, the boy notices that the agonizing ache of torn muscles followed him into the real world. Despite the absurd suffering, he accepts his destiny, knowing that the lonely road to supreme power has barely begun. Days later, the university's massive auditorium wakes up packed for the team formation ceremony. The school authorities and evaluating professors are already organized in the main grandstand, waiting for the freshmen. In the bleachers, the students gossip excitedly about the presence of the Alliance bigwigs watching the trials. Sitting next to his friend, Ma Long comments, impressed that the requirements for the final evaluation have completely changed. The MC listens in silence, calculating the new rule of 5 members per group and 1 high-ranking leader. Interrupting the side conversations, the director clears his throat into the microphone, demanding everyone's attention. The suit-wearing bureaucrat officially announces that the class scores have already been sent to their personal communicators. Immediately, the crowd of young people starts checking their devices, generating a widespread uproar across the hall. The holograms from the devices show the complete leaderboard, with the arrogant Gong Ting leading solidly in the D ranks. Reading the lower results, Ma Long gets indignant, thinking the technology made some absurd mistake. The official ranking list certified Si-Chen as a minimum rank warrior, considering it the worst score of the year. Not understanding the situation, the boy in the sweater asks his friend about that low score since he destroyed the machine earlier. The class gossips start whispering among themselves, finding the boy's drastic drop in performance strange. They mock the hero's failure, concluding that the school's magical core was indeed malfunctioning during the test. The former rogue ignores the chart coldly, finding it excellent that now nosy person will want to test his patience. He doesn't care about the scattered students calling him trash and bringing up his rejection by the student council. Across the audience, the council president shoots a glaring look at his rival, loving to witness his public humiliation. In the grandstand, director Gong Xuan monitors the reaction, satisfied because he knows exactly who manipulated the grades. The old man evaluates his own nephew in silence, finding the young man impatient for not knowing how to use human malice. With a dirty plan orchestrated, he assures himself that his family's enemies won't even be able to compete today. A frantic rush takes over the bleachers, with freshmen yelling the names of the strong leaders. A literal crowd of desperate students gathers around the elite student to secure a safe spot. Willing to do anything, the freshmen go as far as lowering themselves, offering blind loyalty just to be carried through the missions. Annoyed by the deafening screaming, the president orders the bunch to back off, warning that only one member is missing. Half an hour passes since the commotion, and the bracelets start beeping, confirming the successful partnerships. Small squads celebrate across the huge hall, exchanging wishes of good luck for the impending battle. Totally frustrated, Ma Long sighs in defeat, confessing they searched everywhere and no one wanted their presence. The freshman falls into despair, realizing they are short on members and will be eliminated right away. Sweating cold, the boy with glasses finally puts the pieces together and notices the obvious sabotage by the board. With a serious expression, the MC agrees that the school clique deliberately attacked their room to hold them back. The warrior recalls that the practical tournament is the main ticket to securing good jobs in the corporations of the future. The rules of the exam establish a balance where the number of cavern demons scales with the size of the team. The system punishes large groups by sending terrible threats, proving that strength in numbers doesn't mean an easy victory. Because of this, weak warriors end up totally isolated since no one wants to carry extra dead weight at extreme risk. The injustice becomes clearer when the digital board proves that the academy's bottom 3 ranks landed in the same dorm room. Trying to save the situation, the fearful friend spots Xiang Zuo from afar and tries to call him before he disappears. The attempt to recruit their last roommate meets the hostility of the kiss-ups who mock the trio of nobodies. Facing the mess grimly, the former shadow fighter concludes that if nothing changes now, their expulsion is already guaranteed. With his head down, Xiang Zuo refuses to join the team, knowing their bad grades would cause disqualification. The rookie simply apologizes and turns his back on his former peers. Unsettled by the betrayal, Ma Long yells that they had agreed to form a group and swears never to abandon his friends. At that moment, the sycophants around them make fun of the situation, thinking it's a joke for the isolated group to demand loyalty. The digital screen confirms that almost all students have already filled the team slots for the tournament. Ma Long panics upon noticing they are only one member short, yet no one is willing to help. The MC watches all that humiliation in complete silence. Far from there, director Gong Xuan watches everything comfortably, being another influential bigwig from the enemy's family. The bureaucrat finds it ridiculous for the former rogue to consider himself a threat while manipulating the evaluation rules at will. Realizing the obvious persecution from the board, the boy opens the system, initiating the class change process. With the transformation complete, radiating pure electric energy, he decides he doesn't need to be polite anymore either. The appraiser's eyes widen as he sees that the standard tests aren't the only way to prove strength. Startled by the sudden power, Ma Long asks his friend's intention, remembering a tradition from the awakened schools. The students are intimidated by the glowing aura, knowing any student can initiate a direct combat right there. This kind of attitude serves exactly to show true potential in front of everyone through extreme provocation. Most people would back down faced with such a sudden challenge, but Gonting stands firm in his chair, exuding arrogance without showing any fear. The hero knows very well that by defeating the absolute leader right away, several people will beg for a spot on his team. Suddenly, the auditorium door opens with a female voice asking if the squad still needs people. Surprised, the warrior turns his head, hearing the newcomer announce that she also wishes to participate in the evaluation. Walking down the stairs, Ling Yu guarantees that her high rank won't hinder their overall performance. The freshmen are in disbelief to see the vice president joining the biggest underdog of the academy. Annoyed by the interference, one of the lackeys questions the president about the young woman's absurd decision. At the main grandstand, Gong Xuan slams his hands on the table, outraged by the unexpected turn of events. The girl ignores the curious looks and continues walking elegantly toward the isolated trio. The gossipers comment that the new girl is a genius exchange student from the Saint He Kingdom. Gritting his teeth, the bureaucrat can't accept that the stranger is ruining his perfect plan. He reprimands her harshly, stating that guest students don't have technical permission to participate in the practical exam. At that, the university's headmaster appears out of nowhere, radiating a powerful purple aura to agree with the vice president. Terrified by the overwhelming presence, the appraiser shrinks back in his chair, not understanding how the boss arrived so quickly. The supreme leader questions the real reason the young woman wants to meddle in the institution's final test. Observing from afar, the MC deduces the teleportation magic and finds it odd that his class is a warrior one. The girl calmly replies that graduation only makes sense if the students can show what they can really do. The former shadow fighter analyzes the mysterious duo with full attention, focused on the exchange of words. To his surprise, the system fails completely, unable to detect the power level of either of the two bigwigs. Taking advantage of the gap, Gong Xuan praises his boss's supposed decision to try to keep the bands in his favor. The superior director ignores the flattery, giving a speech to the auditorium that the school's goal is to cultivate elite warriors. He emphasizes that the practical test is the defining moment in the students' lives to secure society's future. With a threatening look, he questions how the institution would deal with the guilt of holding back a talent for shady reasons. Sweating cold, Gong Ting's uncle immediately realizes the indirect comment was about his sabotage of the school grades. He looks at the isolated group at the back of the room, doubting that all this fuss is to protect someone useless. Deciding not to risk his own position, the appraiser gives up clashing with the main administration. The bureaucrat fully trusts that his nephew still holds the absolute advantage with a vastly superior team. Disguising his nervousness, he laughs loudly, agreeing that the team formation method was too strict. To close the subject, the old man officially opens the registration for groups that didn't get the mandatory 5 members. Instantly, the 4 young people's bracelets beep, confirming the squad's official union in the system. Ma Long celebrates with relief alongside his friends, declaring that the MC will be their great captain on the mission. Near the grandstand, Ling Yu comments that her superior's interest in the boy exceeded all her expectations. The tension in the hall reaches its peak, with the 2 worst enemies leading their respective teams in the event. The Supreme Leader gets excited, feeling very curious to see which monstrous cave the former rogue will face. One of the professors takes the microphone and instructs the captains to choose the location and difficulty level. Within seconds, Gong Xuan's tablet beeps, alerting him to the first selection and leaving him confused by such speed. The entire audience turns to the big screens, confirming that Sai Chen's group was the first to make their choice. One of the freshmen goes into shock reading the official information brightly projected on the auditorium wall. Desperate about the decision made, Ma Long shakes the captain's shoulders, begging him to cancel it right away. The warrior keeps a calm face while his peers question if he knows the absurd risk of what he just selected. The graduation exam marks the first time students face real demonic hordes to earn vital points. The official score is divided by completion time, counting a special bonus if the monstrous leader is taken down. Choosing the lower difficulties guarantees very small multipliers and limits the fighter's final grade. The grand prize includes direct recruitment into the luxurious Imperial Guild, accompanied by a fortune of 1 million in cash. The rookies recall that the absolute record of 90 points was set in the past by an alliance genius. They firmly believe that only Gong Ting's prestigious team has a chance to break that historic mark today. The evaluating professor is interrupted by a new alert on the panel announcing another quick choice in the tournament. The gossip quickly spreads, revealing that the leader of the rejected group shocked everyone again by altering the initial registration. The blue hologram displays the terrible final selection to the entire room, pointing to a deadly D-class dungeon. The hero stares at the confirmation prompt, totally ignoring the imminent danger. The crowd freaks out since no one has ever managed to survive such a difficult scenario before graduation. Tugging at his classmate's clothes, Ma Long thinks the button was clicked purely by accident and that his friend has lost his mind. Even the proud Xiang Zuo collapses to the floor, deeply regretting having agreed to follow a crazy captain. The tablet demands unanimous approval from the other members, forcing the cowards to consider fleeing the mission right then and there. With a trembling voice, the classmate asks if leadership thought properly about the brutal consequences of that restricted area. Before the team could cancel, a loud sound echoes through the auditorium, completely shifting the focus of the scandal. The student council president finalizes his own registration, selecting the same infernal location without blinking. The students completely lose their minds with the new announcement, screaming in awe at the insane rivalry of those two. Settled comfortably in his chair in the stands, the supreme director is certain that this exam will be the most fun of all. Observing the situation, Ling Yu mocks the rejected squad for trying to act tough without evaluating their own skills. The young woman deduces they know they'll end up in last place and are doing all this craziness just to get attention. Finding their stupidity amusing, she notes that in a lethal dungeon, there's not a single chance the other members will agree to stay on the team. Meanwhile, Xiang Zuo stares at his bracelet, sweating cold at his captain's insane decision. He analyzes the former shadow fighter, noticing the focused expression and powerful aura of someone who in the past always depended on his help. The young man with glasses hesitates in silence, weighing the real consequences of entering a den of dangerous monsters. But he quickly presses the confirmation button, declaring that they spent 4 years together and he will follow his friend to the end. Soon after, Ma Long also approves the registration, claiming that staying in the lowest rank on an easy or hard level doesn't change their failure. Desperate over the group's sudden courage, the long-haired classmate draws everyone's attention. He freaks out indignantly, asking how he, of all people, who considers himself the best in the dorm, was left for last in this crazy choice. Under pressure, the student confirms his participation, yelling that they are going to graduate anyway and decides to embrace the collective insanity. The big screen blinks, officially announcing that the MC's team has successfully confirmed their registration for the D-class dungeon. Faced with the unexpected unity, the leader turns to face his dorm mates. Sincerely, he apologizes, revealing that he chose the highest level purely to secure the MVP prize. The warrior admits that this personal ambition ended up forcing normal people to face a highly dangerous mission alongside him. Emanating great excitement, the MC encourages the group, stating that now they will fight together to achieve the maximum score. Still in the auditorium hall, Gong Ting glares at his rival, mentally swearing that the champion title will be his alone. The student council president keeps his head high, exuding a crushing pressure that terrifies the nearby freshmen. Furious with the double challenge, he declares that the entire institution has room to house only one supreme student. From afar, Ling Yu shows great intrigue, commenting that she had never seen the elite prodigy deliver such a passionate reaction. The vice president notes that the silent rivalry between the two boys has finally exploded in front of everyone. Following the heavy atmosphere in the room, the villain's uncle shows no joy at the attention the underdog is receiving. On the other hand, the Supreme Director openly praises the absurd courage of today's youth in the face of imminent danger. But the girl evaluates that the former rogue is overconfident, as such a dangerous area is impossible to beat alone. She points out that the amateur group nullifies any advantage of the magical multipliers, making that strategy the worst choice of all. The experienced leader agrees peacefully, recalling that there is barely over a month left before the exam truly begins. He has full conviction that it's impossible to forge capable warriors for real combat in such a tiny time frame. Looking at the virtual simulation room, the old man just hopes the crazy team manages to put on a minimally decent show. 17 days before the event, the Academy's tranquility gives way to despair in an intense military training on the running track. Panting without being able to breathe right, Ma Long asks why they are sweating out there while the rich kids use the combat simulators. Upset, the fearful classmate complains about the heavy physical education routine, claiming graduation won't be a track and field test. Keeping up the running pace, Si-chan explains that using magic in comfortable virtual rooms will never prepare the body for reality. He stops in front of the exhausted team, warning that absolute terror in the face of the unknown throws any useless theory in the trash. The hero states brutally that their only salvation against real demonic beasts will be to blindly trust their most primal instincts. Calmly, he details that the intense preparation right now serves solely to polish their body resistance and their muscles' explosive speed. The leader warns that the benefits of the school computer don't even come close to the evolution forged in the pressure of survival in the real caves. His expression darkens as he remembers that common people will never have the right to set foot in those valuable locations dominated by the great families. In contrast to the misery of the commoners, Gong Ting slices monstrous beasts, gaining power in his own private training dungeon. The elite squad keeps collecting life points non-stop, determined to sink the success chances of the poorer students. Dripping with sweat after the isolated grind, the arrogant heir proves that his position as king of the school requires focusing on the darkest details. The former shadow fighter wraps up his reality check by stating that the powerful receive the exclusive advantages from birth that the rejects dream of their whole lives. Touched by the passionate speech, the friends throw their cowardice away and ask how a group of underdogs can strike back against this twisted system. Straight to the point, the captain dictates that the only viable revenge is to shatter the social barrier by walking into the richest organization through the front door. The previously terrified duo finally accepts the weight of the mission, understanding that this reckless event is their only chance to change their own destinies. In silence, the gluttony bearer agrees with himself that devouring all the enemies in the trial will be his unbeatable route of ascension. Emanating extreme confidence in the near future, the MC guarantees he will put everything on the line to lead them to an unquestionable victory. 15 days before the official debut, the hunter dives with fury into his mental dimension to butcher the horde of phantom lions in the dark wastelands. He lands precise strikes charged with pure electricity, tearing through the beast's impenetrable skin in fractions of seconds. Taking advantage of the brutal momentum of the grind, the young man dashes like a purple lightning bolt, instantly obliterating any creature in this path. At the 10 days mark, the rejected quartet keeps running on the dirt track under a harsh sun to completely heal their weak muscles. Once again in a mental tower of trials, the gluttony bearer unleashes a massive amount of thunder, pulverizing several enemies simultaneously. Countering this brutal evolution, Gong Ting also sweeps the darkness of his private zone, cutting down beasts with lethal magical blasts. With merely 5 days left until the ordeal, the hero trains push-ups on the court while carrying the combined weight of his 3 exhausted friends on his back. On the 3rd day of the countdown, the elite leader rests his hot blade while walking over mountains of beasts defeated by his intense flames. Reaching the final 2 days, the former rogue raises his title to level 16 and rests fully, sitting on the piled-up defeated foes. Bathed in the unreal remnants of the demonic tower, Si-chen shows extreme fierce satisfaction, declaring that the boring child's play is finally over. On the morning of the lethal competition, the silence of the room is broken by a floating robotic drone that cheerfully introduces itself as the mission inspector. Quiet and focused solely on the impending fierce battle, the warrior straps the tactical gloves and the guild's combat gear to his body. Renewed by the absurd military discipline of the past weeks, the members walk down the hallways displaying relentless extermination postures. The general confusion and panic in the lobby are silenced by a majestic announcement warning of the definitive start of the school's biggest battle. Far from the survival arena, the entrance of the peaceful campus is brought to a halt by the unexpected arrival of several ultra-luxury vehicles. The experienced director walks quickly to the sidewalk, stretching out his hand eagerly to greet the first arrogant tycoon who steps out of the wealthy fleet. Acting with extreme friendliness, Gong Lin, the powerful father of the student leader, gives a shallow apology for the entourage's slight delay. Hidden in the safety of the upper floors, the freshmen covet the wealth and are mesmerized by the bigwig of the main Explorer Corporation. However, the gossipers note in confusion that the snob was on the sidewalk next to the old director, just waiting for the person in the car behind them. The silence of the courtyard is broken when a pink-haired bureaucrat steps out of the car, surrounded by fearsome, suited bodyguards. The man with an icy posture loosens his suit, proving his authoritative identity as one of the leadership pillars of the Global Defense Alliance. The audience at the windows loses their minds, screaming in shock upon realizing that a true commercial king wasted his free time on the student scum. They fearfully deduce that the internal streets of the entire school were paralyzed just to avoid offending that overwhelming aura of billions. While the visitors walk toward the digital monitoring screens for the mortal trial, the entire youth wildly longs for a janitor job with them. Settled comfortably in the secret room, the host points to the big screens, showing that 130 youths were pushed into almost 30 groups. Reinforcing the details of the isolated trial ground, he proudly reports that only 2 teams of brave and foolish students invaded the cursed D-rank dungeon. The serious secretary of the organizations raises an eyebrow reading the clipboard of papers, horrified by the absurd information of normal kids seeking a painful end. In front of the millionaire guests, she indignantly asks if the leaders at least had the human decency to warn them about the guaranteed carnage on the worst stage. Without losing his fake calm, the schoolmaster taps his foot, claiming they warned of the massive danger, proving that almost everyone opted for the system's weakest challenges. On the monitoring screens, a young man with electric powers fights with extreme difficulty against a lower-level salamander. The suits comment that the freshmen are taking a severe beating against the bosses, since these dungeons have a completely different power tier. In another setting, exhausted students feel the terror of a dangerous zone, where any common monster has the same strength as a lord. A terrifying beetle spider charges at the group, showing that clearing this lair is basically a reckless mission. Desperate, one of the boys with glasses is shocked by the absurd difficulty, realizing the situation has gotten out of hand. Watching the impending carnage, the secretary asks what the safety measures are in case any student is in real life-threatening danger. The experienced director calms the woman, assuring her that the students are the institution's most valuable resource. He explains that members of the Imperial Guild are on standby at the portals to intervene in case any extreme disaster happens. Furthermore, the school leader notes that the standard bracelets have a direct teleportation function for emergencies. Unable to handle the pressure, one of the rookies cries in fear and presses the device's button, giving up on the exam right away. As soon as the withdrawal is confirmed, the system pulls the coward out of the red cave in the blink of an eye. Impressed by the structure, the executive praises the courage of the 2 teams that chose the lethal level and waits to see their performance. With a mysterious air, the old bureaucrat agrees, wanting to see in practice how long those daring youngsters will last. At that moment, the screen cuts to an intense blizzard where the appraisers bet those kids will quit real quick. Stepping on the snow of the fearsome forest dome, Si Chen's team freezes upon noticing a bizarre creature approaching in the dark. The dreadful beast reveals itself to be a phantom bat monkey, leaving the freshmen terrified by its scary appearance. Keeping his cool, Si Chen warns that the beast attacks in packs, and that they need to be very careful with the rapid aerial strikes. Wasting no time, the shadowy creatures leap through the rocks, aggressively charging at the intruders in the blizzard. Taking advantage of the terrain, the monsters dive from the sky, focused on slicing up their new prey. The group's leader notices the speed of the ambush and yells for his companions to brace for the lethal impact. Using his enhanced reflexes, the former shadow fighter slides through the snow, narrowly escaping the strike. Following the captain's rhythm, the fearful Ma Long also manages to throw himself to the ground, dodging the enemy claw. Fallen on the ground, the trio is amazed to realize they actually managed to survive an attack from a superior class. The relief is short-lived when the snow explodes violently, with the brutal arrival of another wild beast. Changzuo widens his eyes in shock as he focuses on his former roommate's impressive stance. The MC simply exterminated 3 dangerous beasts in a single blink using his purple lightning. Emitting an electric aura, he warns that his friend's current strength is not enough, and orders them to just defend themselves. With this direct order, the gluttony bearer dictates to leave the rest of the heavy lifting in his hands. However, the pack of monkeys focuses on the weaker targets, forcing the students to run desperately so they don't get shredded. Thrown off balance by panic, the young man in the sweater trips in the snow, trying to run away from the flying charge. Finally understanding everything, Xiangzua deduces that the brutal training on the court served only to build their survival reflexes. The young man frowns in frustration, remembering that for years he played the tough protector of the dorm. Meanwhile, Si Chen continues his private slaughter, tearing through the monkeys with electric blades without the slightest difficulty. The beasts try to attack as a group in a synchronized swoop, aiming to break the experienced hunter's guard. The leader's purple electricity cuts through the air, slicing the flying enemies before they can even counterattack. Watching the onslaught, the classmate with glasses admits he doubted the hero's new strength until he faced brutal reality. He concludes in awe that his friend's monstrous power is on a level far above any normal graduate. To the hiding students, the lone boy fighting in the snowstorm looks like a true war veteran. Xiang Zui laments his own weakness, accepting that he was left behind while the former underdog became extremely reliable. But the self-pity is interrupted by a warning shout pointing out that another monster is diving at their backs. Acting purely on instinct, the fearful boy launches a blast of icy wind to try and slow the enemy's advance. Seizing the opening, the other member concentrates a strong, fiery energy in his fists for the counterattack. Angered by their own uselessness, they call each other's attention, ready to finally throw themselves into the fight. The trio decides they can't act like dead weight at a time when danger is breathing down everyone's necks. Burning with determination, the classmate furiously yells, reminding them that this infernal trial is also their graduation exam. Agreeing with his hot-headed partner, Xiang Zuo unleashes an intense green magical energy from his hands. The student conjures powerful, thick roots that sprout from the frozen ground, ordering the beast to taste his strength. The magical vines whip through the air, quickly wrapping around the monster's hairy body mid-charge. However, the beast shrieks in anger and uses its brute strength to snap the plant bindings instantly. The young man steps back, shaken to see his strongest spell destroyed as if it were absolutely nothing. Without hesitating, Ma Long takes the lead, casting an aggressive freezing mist spell to contain the creature. Panting, he announces that he managed to slow the target down and yells for his friends to attack together all at once. Recovering his posture, the plant manipulator recasts the green magic, mocking the trapped opponent's slowness. The combination of ice and vines creates a perfect trap, pinning the monkey inside an immobilizing cocoon. With the path clear, the fire boy charges forward, wrapping his fists in a massive amount of red flames. He leaps without fear, firing an explosive flaming bullet straight into the center of the tied-up beast's chest. The direct hit generates a large orange explosion that lights up the night landscape. Consumed by the flames, the phantom monkey lets out a high-pitched shriek of pure pain amidst the smokescreen. But the attacker begins to sweat cold, terrified to realize the lord's tough skin resisted the concentrated damage. In a burst of violence, the monster ignores the burns and shatters the trap, tearing through the freshman's magic through sheer hatred. Worn out by the continuous effort, the plant dominator confesses in despair that his roots are breaking. On the other side, Ma Long trembles from exhaustion, warning that his magic reserves have hit their absolute limit. Seeing that their shared defense is about to collapse, the third classmate curses in frustration and decides to bet his entire life on a single strike. Boiling with blind adrenaline, he focuses 100% of his power to unleash his true explosive fury. A colossal fireball sweeps the mountain landscape, swallowing the monster in a destructive storm. After the dust settles on the snow, the floating drone beeps cheerfully, confirming the official takedown of the sinister creature. Fallen from exhaustion in the mud puddle, the three celebrate in disbelief that they actually wiped out a creature of such a high class. Nearby, the class hero cleans his blade, looking curiously at the amateur group lying on the ground. Proud of their own lightning-fast evolution, the partners call out to the captain, showing off the valuable items the monkey dropped. Panting and shaking, Xiang Zuo flashes a cocky smile, blatantly lying that the fight was too easy for him. At that, the MC acknowledges their effort, praising his friends while the machine announces that all local targets have been exterminated. Far away in the armored room, the director sweats cold, his jaw dropping as he watches the underdog group achieve the impossible on the screens. He can't accept the footage showing rookies with no real experience single-handedly defeating such a lethal threat. Beside the panicked master, the guild bigwigs maintain an analytical posture in silence. Settled comfortably, the pink-haired billionaire breaks the silence, commenting with great interest on the boy's excellence. Observing the carnage in the snow, Sichin mutters reflectively, if that was all there was to it. On the monitoring room screens, Shinji finds the boy very familiar. One of the executives present asks the young man's name and guarantees he will remember it. The suit with sunglasses focuses on the broadcast without saying a single word. Suddenly, another observer in the back gets startled by something flashing on the main monitor. To break the tension, the director stands up sweating cold and asks the guests to look at another screen. The broadcast shows Gonting's team clearing their way through the D-rank layer with ease. One of the evaluators praises the group's perfect coordination, comparing them to a professional team. The blue-haired manager is amused by the situation, noting that the quality of the graduates is great. Regaining his confidence, the director smirks, warning that the real show is yet to begin. Inside the toxic cave, a bunch of poisonous mushrooms fiercely charges at the invaders, but one of the female students plays her magical guitar, releasing a melody of decay. Taking advantage of the opening, the green-haired boy concentrates his energy to pull the monsters in. The mage conjures a stellar attraction, crushing the enemies together, and calls out to the captain. Wasting no time, Gongting draws his sword with a ruthless gaze, ready to finish it. The nuclear warrior unleashes a devastating flaming slash that chars the monsters in an explosion. After the brutal attack, the young man sheaths his weapon with an attitude of total superiority. His partners approach, commenting that facing those creatures was a piece of cake. One of them flatters the leader, claiming that having the backing of the right person makes life much easier. Excited by the guaranteed victory, the group moves forward, focused on defeating the final boss. Back on the freezing mountain, Sichin keeps his guard up, sniffing out the danger ahead. Walking through the blizzard, the students can hardly believe they reach the peak of Belair. Just ahead, a huge ice phantom monkey tears into the carcass of another beast on the ground. Ma Long trembles in terror, deducing that a single slap from the final lord would be enough to finish him. Sensing the presence of strangers, the creature chews the meat with its red eyes glowing. The boy with glasses goes into total panic, yelling that the beast noticed the group. The giant beast roars furiously and charges at the students, who run desperately for their lives. Without backing down a single inch, the MC leaps covered in lightning and lands a kick right in the Lord's face. The impact of the blow generates an electric shockwave that breaks the monster's momentum instantly. Due to the absurd force of the attack, the heavy creature is thrown far away against the snow. The hunter lands softly, sliding across the ice while the electricity dissipates from his body. Witnessing the instant takedown, his classmates are perplexed by the ease of the victory. Standing before the beast's remains, the system alerts him that he obtained only an ice monkey pelt. The young man finds it weird that the Lord yielded so little experience and complains about the useless loot. However, his eyes light up when he notices something valuable hidden in the scenery. The students run up to the frozen trunk, amazed by the glowing discovery. The hiding spot is packed with massive intermediate-level mana stones. Shang Zuo hugs the crystals, laughing out loud, assuring them they'll be rich if they sell everything. Suddenly, the gluttony bearer feels a dangerous intent and orders everyone to stop. A lethal magical projectile cuts through the air, fired directly at the distracted group. The blinding light catches the freshman completely by surprise, leaving no time to react. Sai Chen turns his head, facing the high-level magical threat approaching. An ice bomb explodes violently, turning the area into a crater of sharp spikes. As a result of the ambush, Ma Long ends up trapped inside a massive block of ice. Immediately, the system's broadcast suffers interference, declaring a loss of signal from the team. Watching the tragedy, the director smiles maliciously, stating that trash always drags others down. Concerned for the lives at risk, a professor suggests that the rescue team intervene immediately. However, one of the bosses asks them to wait a little longer before canceling the trial. The manager of the Mithril Guild defends the youth, explaining that their vital signs remain normal. The executive with glasses agrees in silence, deciding that the choice to quit must come from the students themselves. On the battlefield, the boy in the sweater lets out a loud sneeze from inside his frozen shelter. Shivering in the makeshift barrier, he is thankful that his class prevented everyone from perishing. Hovering above the ice spikes, a gloomy skeletal figure makes an eerie noise. Observing the sinister apparition, the MC understands that this is the true lord of the cave. The fearful guy recognizes the beast, warning that it loves to play with its prey in a cruel way. Sai Chen faces the frozen Bone King and deduces that the previous bomb was just a trap. Knowing he cannot beat a rare rank C monster alone, the young man runs for cover. He tries to get away as fast as possible to come up with a counterattack plan. However, a sharp spike erupts from the ground and pierces the hunter's leg, causing a severe injury. Caught off guard by the treacherous strike, he loses his balance and collapses on the ice. Sadistic, the Bone King laughs wickedly, preparing another concentrated ice attack. Injured on the ground, the system alerts him about the puncture and asks if Si Chen wishes to abandon the exam. From inside the defensive block, Ma Long refuses to surrender, determined to unfreeze his captain. The student casts a purification spell, believing there is still hope if his friend recovers. Pushing his magical limits to the extreme, the guy coughs heavily from the strain, trying to keep the spell active. The interface announces the skill's failure, making the young man collapse in pain on the freezing ground. Mocking the useless effort, the skeletal creature summons more perilous spikes while laughing out loud. The hunter receives multiple critical damage alerts, while the system insists on his withdrawal. Kneeling in the snow, Ma Long bitterly remembers that he always ran away when fear showed up. This cowardice was the reason he suffered bullying and humiliation at school for years. The guy in glasses remembers how much they trained in the mud to get there. They had earned their first real chance to turn their failing destinies around. Crying out of anger, the fearful classmate screams with all his might that he refuses to give up like that. Burning his own life force, he casts the purification spell directly onto Si Chen's fallen body. Yelling in despair, Ma Long releases 100% of his power to save the MC's life. The skeletal creature fires a devastating barrage of ice spikes through the air. Bellowing with all his strength, Ma Long projects his magic toward his friend. The spell hits the frozen prison while the fearful guy keeps screaming non-stop. At that moment, Si Chen's eyes shine brightly as he awakens his electric power. With a lightning-fast dash, he escapes the attack, tearing through the scenery like a thunderbolt. The shadowy monster is surprised to see its prey get away so quickly. The MC lands safely in the snow, carrying his sweater-wearing classmate. Smiling weakly, Ma Long comments that his friend managed to break the control all by himself. However, Si Chen assures him that the help was essential and checks if his wounds have stopped hurting. Facing the rank Sea Lord, the hunter warns that they absolutely cannot be frozen again under any circumstances. From up high, the skeletal beast starts preparing a new devastating spell. A colossal ice bomb forms in the sky, leaving the boy completely baffled. Savoring the situation, the Lord shows a diabolical smile in its spectral form. Completely panicked, the guy in glasses screams that it's impossible to dodge an attack of that size. Leaving no chance to escape, the gigantic frozen mass plummets and explodes violently on the battlefield. The devastating impact swallows the entire area in a blinding flash of ice. Floating high above the crater, the skeletal lord laughs, thinking it has won. However, the beast cuts its celebration short upon noticing something moving down below. In the middle of the freezing storm, a silhouette stands firm without a single scratch. The system reveals Si Chen at level 16, now equipped with the Cloud Warrior's body. Witnessing the impossible, the Bone King lets out a roar of pure shock. Protected by his friend's back, Ma Long stutters a question about that new power, remembering his electric class. The guy in glasses asks in amazement if the leader is a rare dual-class awakened. With an icy mask forming on his face, the MC repeats the question ironically. Soon, he apologizes for miscalculating the situation and dragging the group into that danger. Clenching his fist surrounded by chaotic energy, the hunter declares that the disadvantage ends right there. The system is triggered once again as a blade of pure darkness begins to materialize. A spooky purple aura overflows from the young man's body during the loading of the new form. The destructive energy gathers in his hand, ready to obliterate the enemy. Finishing the transformation, Si Chen takes the stance of an abyssal demon wielding a colossal shadow scythe. The student in glasses goes wide-eyed, completely shocked by the scene. In this world, the chance of a hunter awakening 2 classes is only 1 in 10 million. Those who achieve this absurd feat receive the title of dual-class awakened. Because of this rarity, anyone with this talent becomes the main target of all guilds. Grabbing his own head, Ma Long flips out upon realizing the true nature of his companion. The MC recalls his electric power, sparking energy from his hands. Right after, the icy mist confirms the existence of his second combat form. Facing the shadow scythe, the classmate screams hysterically upon confirming that Si Chen possesses 3 distinct classes. With his strength and stamina attributes maxed out, the hunter radiates an aura of pure destruction. Taking advantage of the power spike, he leaps forward, shattering the glacier with a purple blast. The charge is brutal, swinging the gigantic abyssal blade directly at the enemy. Cowering on the ground, the fearful guy realizes that the beast's oppressive presence has completely vanished. With no chance to defend, the ice skull cracks violently under the scythe's impact. Using the overload mode, Si Chen splits the lord in half with a single vertical slice. The hunter lands gracefully in the snow while the creature disintegrates into pieces behind him. The system screen announces the victory, raising the MC's level to 17 with the experience points. Returning to human form, Si Chen uses water to melt the ice prisons of his captured partners. Worried, Ma Long asks if the leader still has enough energy for the rescue, receiving a muffled grumble in response. Xiangzhua and the girl remain trapped by the cold, desperately begging to be taken out of there. Meanwhile, the fallen monster's essence floats isolated in the scenery, awaiting its end. Not missing the opportunity, the bearer of gluttony extends his reddish hand, activating his supreme skill. The spectral lord's blue energy is brutally drained right into the young man's chest. An intense freezing aura begins to flow through the hunter's clenched fist. The acquisition of the Lich King class is completed, marking the first time he absorbs a monster in the real world. The MC analyzes the new status sheet with a focused and calculating look. He feels relieved remembering that the exam camera was destroyed, keeping his powers an absolute secret. Right after, the translucent interface emits a warning sound, catching his attention. The panel reveals that the electric assassin form has reached its maximum limit, being rewarded with 1 star. Confused by the notification, Si-Chen wonders how on earth he got that upgrade out of nowhere. Far from the mountain, the elite team fights for survival against a monstrous carnivorous plant in the jungle lair. Pushing his magic to the limit, the energy manipulator screams in desperation that he can no longer hold the beast back. The other fighter fires electric beams, irritated by that creature's impenetrable defense. Unstoppable, the monstrous jaw lunges forward, breaking any obstacle in its path. The demonic flower swings its tentacles violently, throwing the mage through the air. Fallen on the ground, one of the students panics, asking how they are going to survive such an abomination. Sweating with fear, the human shield claims that the group's only salvation lies in the captain's hands. Far away from them, the support girls buff the swordsman while he gathers thermal energy in his blade. Confident in his own power, Gongting opens his flaming eyes, declaring that it was enough. In the blink of an eye, the arrogant warrior dashes forward, creating a trail of scorching destruction. The student council president leaps relentlessly against the carnivorous lord. Focusing his fury, the upperclassman unleashes the attack, commanding the creature to split in half. A titanic pillar of flames erupts and instantly carbonizes the cursed plant. After the explosion, the lackeys run to butter up the leader, calling him an absolute legend. The school system announces the dungeon cleared in 35 minutes, guaranteeing that no one will beat that time. Sheathing his sword with a snobby smile, Gongting calls his squad to check the final results. In the rest room, the lackey assures that even the weakest rank F dungeon would take at least 1 hour for other people to clear. Laughing out loud, Gongting declares that anyone leaving the lair this early can only be the trash who gave up ahead of time. Meanwhile, Ma Long trembles, curled up on the ground, begging to be spared and needing to be calmed down by the MC. The girl from Shang Zua's team is also completely traumatized, recalling the scary monsters from the test. At that moment, the student council president notices his rival's presence nearby. The upperclassman's face overflows with pure mockery and superiority upon spotting his target. He rubs it in their faces that the hunter's little gang chickened out and abandoned the test way too early, just as expected. The snobby squad leader catches Si-Chen's attention with a blatantly provocative tone. He continuously questions the group's inability to finish the assessment after acting so tough before the test. Changing the subject, the warrior harshly orders his younger brother to return to his side. At that moment, the lackey announces the arrival of the vice president coming to greet them. The sound of clapping echoes through the hallway, accompanied by praise for an absolutely brilliant job. An elegant man in a suit reinforces that he witnessed a spectacular performance in that day's exam. The entourage of big shots walks imposingly through the lobby, catching the attention of all the students present. Confident in his own success, Gongting waits for the superiors with his head held high. Excited, the young flatterer points out that the man at the peak of world power is walking directly toward them. The group's expectation rises as they watch the big shot's hand reach out. However, the elegant man completely ignores the elite team, walking right past them without giving them the slightest attention. Surprising everyone, the suit-wearing man stops right in front of Si-Chen, declaring the young man as someone truly remarkable. He adjusts his suit sleeve, highlighting the absurd feat of clearing a rank D layer in just 21 minutes. The visitor praises the extreme difficulty of the task, even for a full professional team. Totally in shock, the lackey's eyes bulge out, unable to believe the capability of that bunch of losers. Another student stutters indignantly about the record time, while the MC faces the situation with absolute boredom. Standing before the boy is Carl Cavendish, the vice president of the Global Guild Alliance and the second most powerful figure today. Satisfied, the man confirms the young man's name, assuring that the visit wasn't a waste of time after all. Shifting his focus backward, he acknowledges the good performance of the Gong family's young master leading a team in a rank D zone. The school principal kisses up to the upperclassmen, citing the great teachings passed down by the kid's father. Hearing the flattery, the warrior grits his teeth in a mix of anger and deep humiliation. Ignoring the tense atmosphere, the vice president says his goodbyes, claiming it's getting late. As the big shot leaves through the lobby, the principal receives congratulations for discovering 2 extremely rare prodigies. Taking the floor, the old man with the mustache announces the final results, declaring a perfect tie in the exam. Upon discovering their qualification to enter the prestigious Imperial Guild, Ma Long and the arrogant classmates scream, jumping for joy. While the extras celebrate their guaranteed success in life, the elite leader remains silent, boiling with hatred. The principal extends the benefits, promising management positions for the captains and an equal split of the 1 million prize. Instantly, the 2 rivals lock eyes full of extreme rivalry. Worried about his own financial debt, the bearer of gluttony calculates the need to get the other 500,000 quickly. Unsatisfied with sharing the glory, the rich family's son steps forward, declaring the existence of only one true champion. Exuding aggressiveness, he demands a brutal one-on-one tiebreaker match against the electric hunter. The sudden demand leaves the principal and the other students completely stunned. Desperate, the old man tries to contain the madness, assuring that the result is already ideal and the rival would never agree to fight. Cutting the lecture short, the upperclassman starts dictating his own rules for a high-stakes bet. Wasting no time, Si-chen interrupts, securing his end of the deal to keep the entire 1 million if he wins. The university representative chokes comically, noticing the young man's lack of interest in the school's prohibitions. Flaunting blind confidence, the firefighter promises to hand over the total amount in a defeat he considers impossible. Watching the chaos from afar, the Global Alliance vice president finds the escalation of conflict incredibly interesting. On an open stage, the two young men face each other while the elegant big shot instigates the final clash. Facing his rival, the elite warrior demands the rules to resolve the situation and belittles his opponent's strength. Some time later, Ching-ji praises the recent achievements of the young man who shattered the record with a perfect score. The manager mentions the boy's sudden fame and cancels the payment of over 1 million, treating the amount as an investment. Comfortably settled with a glass in hand, the MC catches his ally's attention to change the direction of the conversation. With a relentless posture, the hunter refuses the handout, defining the moral obligation to pay off his debt. He justifies his visit by revealing he has two crucial matters to discuss at that moment. Demanding a 1-week deadline extension, the young man blames the graduation tie for the loss of 500,000. The student reveals the grand tiebreaker battle scheduled to take place inside a wild lair next week. Completely shocked, the dealer questions the absurdity of two mere students risking their well-being in a brutal area. Ignoring any sense of danger, Si-chen guarantees he will get the rest of the money as soon as the confrontation ends. To make up for the inconvenience, the young man promises to hand over all the loot from the defeated monsters as interest for the delay. Impressed by such coldness, the partner reflects on the young man's abnormal audacity to only care about profits and debts in the face of peril. Setting his drink on the table, the university student begins the transition to the second reason for his visit. In a heavy tone, he warns that it's about something even more urgent than monetary issues. The guild manager listens to the demands, focused on every word his partner says. Without hesitating, the hunter plays his ultimate card, demanding the listener's full attention. The impact of the request makes the sharp merchant's eyes widen slightly. Wrapping up his thought, the university student keeps an unwavering face, waiting for the answer. Processing the shock of the words, the man in the suit stands up, evaluating the risks of the deal. Far from the capital, the afternoon sun lights up the calm structure of a high school in a countryside town. Stretching her body with relief, the MC's little sister celebrates the end of the testing season. Relieved by the imminent rest, the sweet girl officially declares the start of her long-awaited vacation. However, a memory hits hard, making the girl check her phone screen with a start. Looking at the nostalgic photo on the device, she remembers the importance of that date, marking her brother's graduation. The memory flashes back 4 years, showing a young Si-chen jumping with glory as he holds his university admission letter. Full of childish hope, the little girl asks about the boy's chance of becoming a great awakened warrior. Hugging the child, the dreamy young man promises to gather mountains of money in the guilds to improve their standard of living. In a solemn moment, the young man plans to unravel the great mysteries left by their parents' tragic disappearance. Blind with admiration, little Si-yun raises her fists, swearing that her great idol will become the most powerful in the world. Lamenting the fact that she is already in her senior year of high school, Si-yun sighs sadly for not having awakened any magical power yet. Soon she remembers her brother's welcoming smile, assuring her that everything was perfectly fine. In the young girl's memory, the boy showed pure determination, stating that she just needed to keep trying her absolute best. Looking at the photo on her phone, the girl reflects on how her relative always worked hard at the university and yet was the only one to fail the awakening. Saddened, the student imagines Si-chen's loneliness watching everyone evolve, a pain the young man always made a point of hiding. Suddenly, 2 classmates approach from behind, calling her attention excitedly. The girl with her hair down asks excitedly if her friend heard about the 2 great geniuses graduating from the National University that year. She details that both led teams with perfect scores, being personally praised by the Alliance's vice president and making the news. At that point, the classmate with the ponytail remembers that Si-yun's brother also attends that same prestigious institution. Interrupting the conversation abruptly, a pink-haired young man approaches, greeting the youngest sister quite intimately. Flaunting confidence, the guy announces he reserved a VIP room in a luxurious building and assumes she will be free at 8 in the evening. Her friend whispers in surprise upon noticing the contact with the school's idol, while Si-Yun lowers her head, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Wasting no time, the MC's sister runs hurriedly down the hallway, completely ignoring the rich kid. The spoiled boy is left clueless about the rejection, while her classmate questions the reason for such sudden haste. In her thoughts, the young girl focuses only on her brother's suffering, imagining him crying over not having powers while the students celebrate their success. Running at full speed through the streets, the girl decides to go home early and prepare a grand feast to cheer him up. The sun slowly begins to set, illuminating the simple building where the small family rents a modest apartment. Arriving at the place, the student proudly shows off a huge pot of hearty food on the table, leaving the fighter wide-eyed. Totally confused, Sai-Chen questions how his little sister managed to find the time to prepare a meal that size. Already seated at the table with her bowl ready, the girl drools over the amazing smell of the broth, praising her own recipe with a pout. On the living room television, the evening news announces the conclusion of the National University's combat assessment. The electric assassin eats quietly while the report highlights the in-person visit of the Alliance's vice president interacting with the students. Observing the young man in silence, the girl sadly concludes that he is forcing a strong posture to hide the pain of failing. Meanwhile, the news anchor reports the extremely rare occurrence of a double tie for the champion title. The broadcast shows the elegant man in a suit giving a speech to the media about the two prodigies and giving special spotlight to one of them. Suddenly, Si-Chen's name echoes through the living room, leaving the student paralyzed and her face burning with surprise. The impact of the revelation makes the young girl freeze in place, staring at the screen's glow, completely astounded. Trembling with absolute amazement, she can barely process that the owner of the perfect score mentioned on television is her relative. Far away in a gloomy place, an elegant shoe steps firmly on the ground while a black whip rests nearby on a grimy stage. In front of a huge illuminated aquarium, Carl Cavendish shows an imposing posture, revealing he invited an entire audience for the punishment. The Alliance's vice president displays a cold and threatening expression, stating that the young man's performance was a total failure. Covered in severe bruises and looking down, Gongting listens to the criticism for losing the solitary top spot to a nobody. With extreme strictness, the big shot strips the warrior of his autonomy, warning that he has already organized everything for the tiebreaker match. Faced with the elite leader's failure, the man in glasses declares that he will take the reins of the situation to ensure victory. Exuding dark authority, the aggressor dictates that the first place will belong solely to the Gong family, no matter the price. Inside his own stellar dimension, the bearer of gluttony silently analyzes the tactic of the phantom lionesses that always attack in pairs. Far off on the lunar plane, the purple lion king always keeps the greatest possible distance from the heat of battle. Focused on the glowing creature, the boy notices the leader's constant cowardice in refusing to dirty its paws in a direct confrontation. Quickly, the lesser beast charged fiercely, kicking up electric sparks across the desolate ground. The university student tries to take advantage of a small opening by firing a lightning bolt at the boss monster, but notices the weirdness of its defensive skills. In the blink of an eye, the huge feline simply vanishes, making the hunter's punch hit only thin air. Turning his face sharply, the fighter realizes that the target always reappears exactly next to the farthest servant. The animal group agilely adjusts its movement across the scenery, keeping its defensive formation untouchable and standardized. Imposing beneath the spatial aura, the majestic beast remains unharmed, frustrating the boy's attempts to strike the master of that floor. Soon the virtual system floats into the MC's vision, displaying the evolution of the electric class's proficiency after the long fights. Analyzing the glowing transformation options in the system, the young man understands that heavily using a class directly increases its power. Despite the newly achieved evolution, he remains distant, facing the purple pack without seeing a clear opening at the moment. Back in the real world, Ling Yu reflects, impressed by the university student's absurd increase in strength in such a short period. The Student Council Vice President analyzes the data projected in the air, containing the Electric Boy's level 18. In a fancy and traditional restaurant, Qing Ji serves a luxurious meal, congratulating the excellent espionage work. Focused on her job, the woman ignores the celebratory mood and mentions having one last important detail to discuss. She brings up the appearance of a very mysterious individual who recently contacted the guild, intriguing the dealer. With a serious look, the blonde reveals the name Pippa as the true code name of the investigated subject. The young woman hands over a physical dossier in the center of the table, containing all the rare information gathered about the mercenary's latest moves. The folder details that hidden criminal figure's incredible ability to not leave a single trace around the world for years. Oblivious to the political tension of the matter, thin slices of raw meat cook slowly in a boiling broth, giving off a delicious aroma. Savoring the sophisticated dish, the blue-haired manager praises the unmatched tenderness of that country's premium beef. Shifting the focus of the dinner, the merchant flashes a sly smile asking for updates on his companion's missions. In her apartment, Si Chen's sister lets the tears roll down her face in a radiant smile because he reached the top. The simple environment of the residence goes quiet as the girl dries her emotions, and the hunter just chews his dinner casually. Extremely moved by the young man's success, the young woman delicately wipes her face with her fingers, cleaning up her held-back tears. Her big red eyes overflow with the purest pride, reflecting the joy of the glorious news. At that exact moment, a violent lightning bolt cuts through the night sky, violently striking the roof of the neighboring building. Excited, she repeats in disbelief that her own flesh and blood achieved an overwhelming historical feat in the strict university test. Almost jumping out of her chair with happiness, the student yells about the perfect score and the high praise given by the vice president. The living room television keeps playing the moment where the Guild Alliance big shot publicly congratulates the Academy's talents. Hypnotized by the report, the teenager listens closely to the special spotlight focused solely on Si Chen's flawless performance. The suit-wearing spokesperson states he is deeply impressed with the boy and wishes for the nation to keep cultivating these gems. The news anchor takes over again to recap the unprecedented achievement of the two exceptional students. Totally out of her mind, the little sister points directly at her brother, demanding confirmation that he is indeed the star of the news segment. Chewing calmly with a full cheek, the monster slayer nods, confirming the grandeur without any excitement. The shock caused by his calmness is so great that the chopsticks slip from the girl's hand, falling hard onto the wooden table. Returning to the secret meeting at the restaurant, the spy raises the strong suspicion that the mysterious bearer of gluttony has already noticed the investigation. The monstrous staircases of bone and flesh in the demonic tower perfectly illustrate the abnormal nature of that individual hunted by the guilds. Standing in the frozen wastelands of his dimension, Si Chen regrets having spent half a month wiping out all the monsters on the floor without real success. Analyzing his virtual panel, Si Chen observes his speed-focused attributes and his level 17. The MC notes that he is already fully adapted to the environment's heavy gravity and realizes his 4 classes haven't reached their limit yet. Focused on getting faster, he invests his newly acquired star into the speed attribute, reaching the level of a rank A assassin. Far off on the desolate lunar plane, the phantom lionesses continue to lurk under the darkness of space. Wasting no time, the purple beasts roar fiercely and launch a direct attack. At the same moment, the hunter activates his divine flash skill, radiating pure electric energy. Keeping absolute calm, the assassin evaluates the situation with electricity sparking across his face. Facing the Lion King's threatening aura, the university student tries to figure out exactly what the true class of that leader would be. While he thinks, the warrior's silhouette awaits the swift approach of one of the lesser monsters. Preparing the counterattack, he gathers a dense charge of lightning in his right hand, ready to strike back. With a decisive move, the sparking blow hits the purple beast square on. Pressing the charge, Si Chen gets annoyed realizing the enemy is repeating the same escape trick from before. The fighter notes in frustration that whenever he tries to finish off one of the servants, it simply vanishes into thin air. Immediately, the lioness appears unharmed right next to the imposing pack leader. As soon as the MC falls back, the beast lunges again, trying to use her as bait to force a mistake. Completely covered by the electric aura, the young man decides to intensify the close-quarters combat, bursting with energy. In a lightning-fast advance, he cuts through the air, delivering precise strikes against the enemy pack. Seeing the scene from above, the MC notices the pack's perfect discipline, keeping an impeccable formation in the snow. The servants attack endlessly, forcing the hunter to dodge and counterattack at a frantic pace. But at the moment of the final impact, the creature suddenly disappears, avoiding the concluding blow. Far from the danger zone, the monster instantly reappears next to its master, proving the tactic's efficiency. Right after, the same beast charges fiercely again, restarting a pursuit cycle. This constant loop creates a true war of attrition, aiming to drain the electric assassin's energies. Surrounded by the phantom animals, the university student stops in the middle of the battlefield, showing great exhaustion. Panting heavily and breaking her cold sweat, Si Chen faces the challenge, feeling the extreme difficulty of that endless clash. It becomes obvious to him that the Purple Lion King is just messing with him from a distance. At that point, a sudden idea pops into the young warrior's mind, completely changing his perspective on the duel. Dashing at high speed across the plain, the boy questions the reason for continuing to insist on close-quarters combat. Using the power of the gluttony system, he triggers the magic swap mid-jump. Already taking on the ice skeleton form, the warrior concludes he doesn't need to play by the enemy's cowardly rules. The monarch of frozen bones decides to use his mage skills to resolve the stalemate once and for all. The interface details the impressive attributes of the new arcane class assumed by the boy on the battlefield. Floating in empty space, the blue energy envelops the MC, completing the powerful elemental transition. Forming sharp spikes around himself, he warns that he too can bypass direct confrontation if necessary. With an icy predatory instinct, the mage declares that he will shatter all opponents using his long-range attacks. The virtual panel confirms the absolute success of the transformation, showing the intimidating posture of the King of Cold. Without hesitating, the warrior conjures gigantic frozen thorns, bombarding the ground with extreme brutality. The violent impact shatters the floor, kicking up a thick cloud of dust and sharp crystals. The purplish beasts are swallowed by the magnitude of the arcane blast without the slightest chance to dodge. Observing the destruction from above, the university student praises the superiority of mages who easily control the entire field. Startled by the perilous rain, the feline leader raises his head, seeing the ice meteors plummeting toward the team. The huge spears tear through the scenery, annihilating any safe route on the lunar surface. Desperate, one of the servants tries to jump toward the black teleportation portal seeking some salvation. The whole area turns into a literal frozen inferno, leaving the pack completely cornered and confused under the impacts. Closing his skeletal hand firmly, the MC realizes the exact moment he trapped everyone in his danger zone. Caught totally off guard by the devastating attack, the huge Beast King takes the direct hit from the bombardment. Relentless in the sky, Si-Chen conjures a colossal, crushing ice bomb, hurling it at the cornered animal group. With his eyes glowing in pure cosmic blue, he declares that there's no safe corner left for the monsters to hide. The imposing spectral dragon of cold emerges, roaring furiously to announce the imminent catastrophe. The gigantic sphere detonates on the ground, generating a massive and merciless freezing shockwave. Immediately, the thick layer of crystal begins to crack over the immobilized bodies of the animals. Taking advantage of the perfect opening, the MC quickly reverts to his offensive melee class, dropping like a lightning bolt. Cloaked in threatening darkness, the young man declares the end of that long challenge on the first floor. Overflowing with absolute confidence, the hunter firmly states that the battle is finally over. In a brutal dive, he applies the crushing triple cataclysm, tearing the air with his formidable pink aura. The colossal strike hits the ground, completely shattering the frozen creatures on the vast plain. Slowly, the icy remains of the pack lose their bright color and begin to disintegrate. The ice sculptures turn into fine dust, being carried away peacefully by the space wind. The chaotic environment becomes peaceful again, revealing the warriors standing victorious in the center of the destruction. Satisfied with the clearing, the young man checks the system, informing him of the direct jump to level 24 and the rewards. The red screen alerts that the carcass of the majestic king can now be completely devoured by the system. Not missing the opportunity, Si-Chen raises his arm, sucking all the purplish energy from the space corpse. Consumed by the hunger for power, he demands to discover the monster's essence and what its true class was. The severed head of the spectral animal quickly turns into glowing particles while it's mercilessly drained. Floating freely in the void, the bearer of gluttony gathers the whirlwind of souls right into the palm of his hand. The system rewards his effort by generating the unprecedented Star Tamer card with its exclusive pact and teleportation skills. Holding the prize, the university student is intrigued by never having seen such a specific vocation in his past life. He finally understands that the leader avoided direct combat precisely because of its weak attributes, hiding behind the servants. In the fresh memory of the combat, the mysterious defensive teleportation of the lionesses makes perfect strategic sense. Analyzing the tamer's tactical screen, the young man confirms the magical jump skill linked to mind control. With a calculating look, the boy praises the utility of spatial escape and finds the system of forced contracts through intimidation quite interesting. Suddenly, the lunar scenery begins to dissolve into heavy sandstorms, interrupting the hunter's thoughts. The space illusion completely vanishes, revealing a massive scorching desert as the true appearance of the tower's first floor. Observing the huge fossilized skeletons in the dunes, the MC wonders what apocalyptic event devastated that desolate place. Walking through the endless sands, he stays focused, heading toward a bright pillar of light, looking to explore the ruins. At that moment, a huge flaming pillar appears in the middle of the desert, announcing that the door to the second floor has finally been opened. Out of the darkness, two small, glowing pink eyes stare in the warrior's direction. Surprised by the sensation, the hunter turns his face back quickly, noticing that something survived. Far off in the dunes, a little stellar cub shivers in fear next to the fossilized carcasses. The little creature growls, trying to look threatening even though it's completely wrapped in purple magic chains. Observing the little animal, Si-Chen is a bit confused upon realizing a baby lion was left on that floor. Already covering his hand with electric energy, he steps forward, deducing this must be the last survivor of the wiped-out pack. Walking on the sand, the university student analyzes that the beast didn't disappear with the king's fall, proving it's not one of the servants. Looking at the energy shackles, the boy suspects that the feline leader himself must have imprisoned the cub there. Without lowering his guard, the assassin gathers a dense charge of lightning focused on the animal's intimidating presence. Terrified by the swift approach, the little guy widens his huge eyes in a panic. With a precise move, the MC fires his energy and easily cuts all the mystical bindings. Free from the spell, the small beast falls clumsily, rolling straight through the dust of the scenery. Lowering his gaze softly, the hunter declares that he is just returning freedom to that little creature. Standing in the desolate vastness, he calmly comments that this place must have been the cub's real home. In a nostalgic tone, Si Chen reveals he perfectly understands the agonizing pain of seeing everyone you know fading away around you. Hearing those heavy words, the lioness just stays in total silence, processing the situation. Heading towards the glowing pillar, the boy advises the beast to keep on living because he needs to advance to the next challenge. But suddenly, a soft buzzing in the air catches the university student's attention right behind him. The tamer system pops up on the screen, confirming valuable passives of experience gain and shared vision. Turning his face quite intrigued, the bearer of gluttony checks the new notifications lighting up his vision. The interface reveals that the baby wants to initiate a magic partnership contract, asking if the user wishes to accept. Straight to the point, he looks at the creature on the ground and asks if it really wants to join him on this journey. Without hesitating for a second, the feline lets out a cute little roar, confirming its absolute choice. Resuming his walk, the warrior warns that he will conquer all the floors of the tower, and the next monsters will be worse. He seriously warns that the animal could get badly hurt or even lose its life, asking if it is sure about the bond. Full of unwavering determination, the little beast roars with all its might, showing it has no fear of future danger. With his eye glowing the color of the contract magic, the student decides to consent and signs the spiritual agreement. A strong pink pentagram forms in the air, officially sealing the powerful union between Master and Stellar Beast. The screen loads the full profile detailing all the teleportation skills of the newly formed class. Sporting a confident smile on his face, the MC invites his partner to explore the hellish path together. While stepping through the huge portal of fire, he tells the beast to try and protect itself during the heavy battles. As soon as he crosses the magic border, the young man lands in the dangerous scenery, submerged in the second level. Immediately, the warrior starts sweating excessively, feeling an absurd pressure in the environment. A huge volcanic cave reveals itself before them, surrounded by floating pillars and large waterfalls of pure lava. Panting, Si Chen mutters that the heat is so extreme he feels his own body is about to melt. Meanwhile, the little mascot floats peacefully, totally ignoring that storm of flames. Walking along the edge of the rock, the student wonders worriedly what kind of monster would live in an inferno like this. But out of nowhere, a massive attack tears through the air, brutally hitting the young man's chest with imperceptible claws. The impact is so fast and devastating that he ends up coughing heavily and instantly blacking out. Waking up with a start in his earthly bed, Si Chen sits up panting after failing shamefully in the mental tower. Totally shocked, he regrets being eliminated instantly without even catching a glimpse of the fatal enemy. Trembling with frustration, the university student tries to imagine the exact level of that volcano lord. In that tense moment, his sister's cheerful voice breaks the silence, calling the boy to have breakfast. On the bright kitchen table, a nice hot meal is already waiting for the boy's arrival. Sitting down calmly, he highly praises the food while seeing the girl hurriedly packing her things. With a slice of bread in her mouth, Si Yun quickly lists the orders of the day, demanding that he wash the dishes and hang the clothes. Curious about the rush, the MC questions where she is running off to right at the start of her awaited summer vacation. He reminds the young girl that she no longer needed to stress about money thanks to his recent achievements. Smiling happily near the door, the student jokes that she needs to keep up with her brother's success by working hard. Leaving the house quickly, she tosses one last warning not to forget the household chores. In the narrow kitchen sink, the stacked plates wait for the electric assassin's goodwill. Hours later, the warrior fulfills his duties, hanging the freshly washed clothes in the sun on the balcony. Resting on the couch, he becomes thoughtful, admiring how Si-Yun was always tireless in life. Looking at the portrait of the two of them together, the young man admits the young girl's flawless determination even while still being a defenseless child. Staring at the photograph, the bearer of gluttony confesses feeling that many times the girl is the one taking care of everything. However, the dark memory of Lord Wrath haunts his mind, demanding his inevitable departure from home. Smiling at the frame, the hunter declares internally that his little sister is his only true concern. touching his forehead, searching for an alternative. A brilliant idea suddenly crosses the university student's mind. Activating his dark pact, a round portal opens in the air, dropping the small lion right into the real bedroom. Widening his eyes in surprise, Si-Chen is amazed to see that his crazy idea worked perfectly. Thrilled with the result, he confirms the miracle of physically summoning the beast from the dream dimension to Earth. Excited by its freedom, the little animal jumps wildly across the table, knocking all the fruits down. Evaluating the perfect situation, the young man decides to send the beast to track the girl and protect her during her dangerous daily life. He reassures himself knowing the girl's old love for animals and is sure she will easily adopt the feline. But a loud metallic bang coming from outside the apartment breaks the hero's strategic train of thought. Frowning immediately, Si-Chen quickly looks toward the suspicious sound. Leaving the little lion drinking milk in the kitchen, he heads to the exit, maintaining maximum high alert. In the darkness of the building's hallways, an old, trembling, and heavily injured hand touches the doorframe. Fallen on the dirty floor, a brutalized man crawls desperately, begging for something to stay away from him. Enveloped in scary black smoke, a malicious silhouette advances while the victim stutters in despair. Merciless and lethal, the monster lands a deep slashing blow on the already vulnerable body of the defenseless old man. With the heavy injury showing, the target goes into a state of pure shock before the hidden predator. In his final moments, he stares at a frightening red eye lighting up the gloomy hallway. A violent spiral of scarlet energy consumes the walls, marking the macabre start of the carnivorous feast. Elsewhere in the city, the sun begins to set while people walk peacefully through the commercial streets. Carrying some bags, Si-Yun sighs in relief for finally getting off work, complaining about being tired after spending all day on her feet serving tea. Now in an emptier alley, the young girl walks thoughtfully, wondering if her older brother will like the flavor she bought. But suddenly the student stops walking upon hearing some suspicious footsteps just ahead. Gripping the bags tightly, she notices the shadow of someone waiting near the brick wall. A male voice echoes through the dark alley, letting her know she had finally arrived. The view focuses on a large and flashy bouquet of red roses accompanying the unexpected reception. Holding flowers, the rich student Jin duoks and winks charmingly, claiming he waited a very long time for her. Wasting no time, he complains that the girl ran away from school too fast, missing his invitation for a date on the reserved floor of a luxury tower. Visibly annoyed by the situation, the MC sister ignores the luxury and asks how the guy found out her address. Full of himself, the boy brags, pointing out that his father is the director of the main city hospital and getting that info was a piece of cake. Straight to the point, Si-Yun makes it clear they don't belong to the same world and demands the rich kid never seek her out again. Bothered by the rejection, the student steps forward abruptly and grabs the worker's wrist by force. Squeezing her arm, he rants about the difficulty of booking the tower and how he'd be embarrassed in front of his friends if she didn't show up. Glaring at the boy with fury, the young girl fires back that she owes his reputation nothing and calls him a creep for stalking her house, revealing his true arrogant nature. The rich kid loses his patience, stating she should be grateful for getting his attention. Completely out of control, the abuser raises his voice, threatening to show what he is really capable of. Without thinking twice, the working girl lands a brutal knee strike right between the stalker's legs. The bully collapses on the ground, agonizing in pain, while the girl advises him to go get his head checked at his own dad's hospital. Turning her back decisively, she goes on her way furiously, complaining that the idiot managed to completely ruin her mood for the day. Later at the apartment, the small white lion cub is lifted in the air, showing off all its shiny cuteness. With her eyes shining with charm, the student lets out a gasp of surprise, totally in love with the little creature. Hugging the little animal tightly, she excitedly asks her older brother where he got such an adorable beast. Sitting on the couch, Si-Chen introduces the mascot as Leo, handing the responsibility of caring for him to the girl who celebrates the news. Petting the feline purring in her lap, she notices the animal's small mane, finding it weird since only adult males grow one. Quite excited, Si-Yun announces she'll run straight to the pet registry the next day to officially sign up the newest family member. Observing his sister's joy, the MC relaxes, relieved, deducing he no longer needs to worry about the house's security. At that moment, the buzz of a notification draws the university student's attention to his phone screen. Staring at the display seriously, the electric assassin's red eyes reflect the device's light, confirming a crucial step. The official guild message approves his pending request, ensuring the young man's master plan can move forward smoothly. With a confident look, the warrior puts his phone away, knowing exactly what his next strategic move will be. With only 6 days left until the big decision, he focuses all his energy on the imminent victory of the school tiebreaker. Time flies and soon the students arrive at the city outskirts by the feared lair of the Green Light Forest. Through a large hologram in the camp, Principal Yuan Long asks for the two candidates' attention to go over the final rules of the test. Standing before a huge emerald portal in the middle of the trees, he explains that the school chose that wild rank D lair for the assessment. Standing on the lawn, Si Chen and the arrogant Gong Ting physically prepare themselves while listening that they'll be evaluated in the same territory. The old principal warns that the inside is unknown and highly dangerous, justifying the presence of 3 experienced supervisors from major guilds. Forming the life protection and scoring team are Ivan from the Imperial Guild, Caillou from the Divine Eyes, and Sato Uota from the Silver Wind. The holographic projection finishes the instructions, warning that the final grades will depend exclusively on the careful evaluation of this trio. Watching everything from afar, the Imperial Guild's vice president silently roots for the judges to do the dirty work without leaving a trace. Sitting in a luxurious room, he questions the guild leader why he's still in town since his appointments ended days ago. With an air of superiority, the executive shoots back that nothing at the moment would be more fun than watching the spectacle about to begin. Through the VIP room's big screen, the image of the university's 2 greatest prodigies waiting for the starting signal is broadcast live. Very interested in the clash, the man confesses it has been years since the last time he saw a real match between true combat geniuses. Outside the dungeon, the principal's projection raises a glowing arm, officially announcing the start of the perilous exam. With a gaze as sharp as a blade, the bearer of gluttony focuses all his attention on the university's imminent final trial. Returning the same intensity, Gong Ting glares at the dungeon doors, sealing the decisive rivalry against his classmate opponent. Walking firmly toward the emerald flash, the 2 students cross the magical boundary, officially kicking off the dreaded practical test. Bathed in the dense supernatural light, the MC steps through the dimensional rift, feeling the sudden change in the surrounding environment. On the other side of the portal, a gloomy and dark forest reveals itself, overrun by giant roots and a ghostly fog. Exploring the hostile terrain, the group moves cautiously among the massive dead trees dominating the desolate landscape. Right off the bat, Gong Ting quickly deduces that they are dealing with a lair focused on venomous plant-type monsters. But suddenly, an electric noise distorts the MC's vision, generating strong scarlet interference right in the middle of his chest. Caught totally off guard by the system, the student widens his eyes as he sees a huge extreme danger notification flashing right in front of him. Reading the intense red alert, the young man tenses up, realizing this is the first time the monster's heart has issued such a